7, I will commence the meeting. Can everyone hear okay up the back? Excuse not being able to be heard. The second thing is, just before we start, we do have, we have 22 speakers, 4 speakers. So each speaker will be given 2 minutes, no extensions. If you work that time out, changeovers and everything, if you worked on 5 minutes, and there are 2 folders of matters to get through tonight. So can I just ask, first of all, I want to say this before we start. It's not a competition who speaks the best, because there'll be a number of, I know, different points of views that people will be giving. I think it's show respect to the speakers. I don't want cheering and clapping or sneering. I think show respect to all the speakers. It's very difficult for anyone to get up and speak publicly, particularly when they're speaking and you're behind them. So I would ask you to show that due respect to all the speakers, please. It's not a competition tonight. Things will be decided elsewhere. Yeah, so it's not the under 14 soccer comp. In the event of an emergency, the building may be evacuated. You will be required to vacate the building by the rear entrance and gather at the breezeway between the library and the art gallery buildings. This is Council's designated emergency muster point. Under no circumstances is anyone permitted to re-enter the building until the all clear has been given and the area deemed safe by authorised personnel. In the event of an evacuation, a member of council staff will assist any member of the public with a disability to vacate the building. All councillors and staff are required to speak into the microphone. You may need to move your microphone close to you to ensure you are heard and recorded on the live streaming. Your microphone will glow red when it is picking you up. And I just remind everyone here that this meeting is live streamed, so everything that you say and do is recorded. I would ask for any apologies for absence.
We have Councillor Taylor and Councillor Duffy this evening. Move.
Councillor Hamling, seconded. Councillor Brevatero, all in favour?
Aye.
Against? Thank you. So this council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking, your meeting to agree to be live streamed and recorded. Okay. I would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of this land. I would also like to pay respect to the elders both past and present of the Wiradjuri nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who may be present. Does any councillor wish to declare any conflicts of interest in any matter for consideration at the council meeting? Councillor Turner.
Sorry, I was going to do that later. On item under planning and development, item 2.2, I declare an interest as I have property in Pearl Court. Council has already notified as a landowner that I may have conflict of interest, so I'm declaring that I have a non-pecuniary conflict of interest.
Thanks, Councillor Turner. Councillor McRae.
In the Infrastructure Committee, I have a conflict of interest relating to the Traffic Committee. Item... Maybe I should put my glasses on. Anson Street parking as a business owner. It's less than significant non-pecuniary, I've been advised, but I'll leave the chamber.
Thanks, Councillor McRae. Any others? No. We've got late items. Got CCL 5.3, request for financial assistance. Someone move we do with that.
Move.
Second, Councillor Hamling. All in favour? You've got a show of hands, please. Thank you. There are no mayoral minutes. Council meeting adjourns for the conduct of the open forum. First we'll have PDC item 2.4, which is the DA helipad, 1083 Forest Road. First of all, we have Dean Bruce, Orange Helicopters Proprietary Limited. Is Mr. Bruce there? Yeah.
Mr Mayor, CEO, directors and councillors. My name's Dean Bruce and I'm the owner and operator of Orange Helicopters. I speak in support of item 2.4, the helipad proposed for our new property on the corner of Forest Road and Hiney Road. We have had a council-approved helicopter landing site in Listerfield Road for the last 10 years, which we have demonstrated complying with our flight regulations, which were approved by council about that 10-year mark. I'm sure we can continue to demonstrate in the future that on our new property that we can adhere and administer these flight paths and the regulated number of flights. Our alternative landing site is the Orange Airport. We do have a DA approved for a hangar to be established out there, which will be the core of our main business. The helicopter site, landing site for Hiney Road / Forest Road is primarily to house our helicopters for the interim and to be able to house the machine that we use for private use, and at times to be able to have a quick response, as probably 85 to 90% of our business is firefighting and search and rescue missions for the state and federal government. We have invested a fair bit of time and money into this, and we've gone through acoustics testing, aeronautical assessments, consulting, and several meetings with the planning staff of Orange City Council. I'll keep it brief. I can see tonight's going to be fairly busy. I look forward to you supporting the planning staff who have put a recommendation that our DA be approved. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Mr. Bruce. Next speaker is Mr. James Dello.
Mr Mayor, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, my name is James Jim Dello. I've got properties both sides of the proposed development, very close proximity. I run about 1,000 sheep on these two properties, north and south of the said property. I just noticed that Mr Bruce said he's always complied with the regulations. Well, my main thesis, Mr Chairman, is point 3 of the note I've handed around to the councillors, is that the applicant considers, I think, it a fait accompli that the helipad is already going. Since in the last 13 months he has been operating this helipad. On the 27th of September 2018, on Saturday, when he says he's never going to operate, I was down in my shearing shed, which is well over 1.5 kilometres away from the proposed site. The noise from a warming up of that helicopter was deafening. It was around about, I didn't write the time on that, but it went for about 45 minutes. And I have 3 witnesses, and one of them was my nephew, who came down after going to Mr Bruce's place to buy sleepers. Said he saw the helicopter there, and he said that he was going to set up a helicopter pad and was steady warming up the helicopter. Point B on my shit there is on the 18th July 2019 at 5 p.m. the helicopter landed. Photograph 1. On the 15th September 2019 at 1:30, a neighbour, Peter over the road, Peter McClimate, absorbed the helicopter.
Can I just suggest, you've handed this around to council and we've all got a copy of what you've handed around. You're nearly running out of time. You've got 20 seconds left.
So, okay, I'm going to. So on the 7th of September, a photograph of 3 witnesses of the helicopter at the port. On the 9th of September, another photograph of the helicopter at the port. And on the 9th of September, 4:30, I did see the helicopter, observed and heard it take off, and the noise was quite unacceptable. So I know I'm out of time, Mr Chairman, so thank you very much for allowing me just to bridge these 2 points. And as I said, it appears that he thinks it's just a fait accompli that he's already operated for 13 months and he has not complied with the rules and regulations. And I think that the council would be probably
Thanks, Jim. I'm going to have to cut you off, mate. I've given you nearly 3. Sally Playfair. Sally, thank you.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. I wish to voice my objection to the proposed helipad, primarily on the grounds that the proposed landing property is in a location within 2 kilometres of the Orange City Council Airport, which has all the facilities that an operation of this kind could accommodate, such as refuelling, hangering, safety, security, and passenger pickup. To briefly hone in on a few points, so that would be my main thing. We already have an airport down there 2 kilometres away. Why aren't we using it? To briefly hone in, from the content of the DA, it's clearly stated that the proponent already has an operative consent to accommodate the helicopter at the airport, albeit for inclement weather. If this is the case already, why is the airport not being utilised as the primary location? It's stated that passengers won't be picked up at the proposed DA location, so the pilot is taking off and having to land somewhere else and then take off again. Refuelling, I would suggest, is perhaps an issue. A large amount of fuel is to be stored at the site. I think I read 8 tonnes. And a spill kit will be available for as one of the constraints put on the DA. But I doubt very much, in the case of a spill, that a spill kit will actually contain the amount of fuel in addition. And in addition to that, who's going to be responsible for monitoring and auditing the spills and the cleanup? Under the LEP, the role of the policy of the LEP under 1.2a is to encourage development that enhances the unique character of Orange as a regional centre offering an attractive lifestyle. I very much doubt, if you were to survey the general tourist, that helicopters in private backyards can hardly be said to be a desirable, unique character of a rural area. With regard to the landing of the helicopter in June, yes, I was privy to that. I was in my paddocks.
Ali, that's 2 minutes.
Sorry, I just had lambing ewes. The ewes were scattered with the throbbing noise and the noise of the helicopter. It is enormous. It's an enormous noise. But I do take into account that you have done a noise survey. But I would think for the surrounding people and certainly for people who have stock, it is a big issue.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Susan. Our next speaker is Graham Thornbury. Thanks, Graham.
Councillors, Mr Mayor, I'd just like to make this very quick. I'm a neighbour of Mr Bruce's. He's obviously a businessman and he wants to make a living, and I'm a builder. I can sympathise with him, but we live in a nice, tranquil area out here. It's a beautiful place, and the noise issue is something that I've got a lot of concern for. The warming up and closing down of his machines when we've got a perfectly good airport, not more than 2-3 minutes flight time from his proposal. Plus, we've got a very, very ordinary access point off Heine Road onto Forest Road, which is always a concern. So, sorry about Mr Bruce, but I think we've got all the infrastructure we need at the airport, and that's where we should be aiming. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr Thornbury. The next item is PDC item 2.5 DA 71/2019. This is the Gosling Creek Path widening. Stephen Martin.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, councillors, CEO, directors, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank councillors and the staff for their support of this project over the last few years. Council initially had $200,000 in their budget towards this project. Unfortunately, we didn't get the funding from other sources at that time, so that lapsed. Since then, we've gained $406,000 in funding from the state government through a couple of different grant programs. Newcrest have given $50,000, so we've now got 406. Over the last 12 years, I've looked at other sites for a venue for a similar track. I've looked at Lake Canobolas, the Field Days site, go-kart track, CSU and Gosling Creek, among others. We've had a lot of help that I mentioned. Newcrest has given $50,000. The 2 government grants, GHD's done design, and Corkeries have worked on the REF pro bono. The track's going to be used by walkers, runners, cyclists, the Tri Club, human-powered vehicles, the Cycle Club, and schools training program. I've had discussions with Canobolas High, Orange High, James Sheehan and Kinross, and all would make use of this facility. And some have currently cancelled some of their programs like triathlon and HPV because they don't have a suitable venue. The main purpose of speaking today is to discuss and oppose Condition 4, which recommends some gates be placed on the track. I myself have completed a number of active transport plans in Orange and Blaney and Cowra and Parkes and Lachlan and Wedden and a number of other councils. So I think I'm qualified to say that that would create a hazard that wouldn't be acceptable. I'd like to just request that Council approve this proposal with the Director's recommendation, which was to not include Condition 4. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mr Martin. We have IPC item 3.1, current works, Mr Cyril Smith, water security.
Thank you, councillors, for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I'd like to thank council for their participation in the water forums recently held, and that includes the ECHO one. Being brief, I represent Orange and Region Water Security Alliance. We support Council's Stop Leakage program to reduce water loss from leaky pipes. A similar program 10 years ago saved something like 500 megalitres a year. Now this is compared to Council's licence to pump water from the Macquarie River at about 640 megalitres per year. We support Council investigating the possibility of gaining permission to pump more water from the Macquarie River, say when the flows are greater than 500 megalitres per day. We support Council's progressive installation of smart water meters for better management. We support the reported, I don't know the details, the agreement between Council and Cadia Valley Operations for the return of 2 megalitres of effluent per day. We support the extension of the stormwater harvesting scheme in an effort the scheme achieves its potential. This may require further infrastructure like another initial holding dam to store water before treatment and the transfer to Summer Park Dam. Building more extraction points in North and South Orange. We support the review of the Integrated Water Cycle Management Plan, which will hopefully include a comprehensive plan for Orange transitioning to a water-sensitive city because of the benefits of doing so. Council should be able to positively state...
Yeah, Mr Smith.
Yeah, just 2 seconds. We have a secure water supply for the next 50 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Right, now we have PDC item 2.2, DA lot 99 Emerald Street. We have just Val Houlihan. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Good evening, everyone. The type of DA of 19 units whether social or affordable housing is encouraging a form of residence segregation and a physical separation of groups of people into different neighbourhoods. The North Orange neighbourhood and community already shapes the living environment at the neighbourhood level with affordable and social housing already. Why build 19 units? This is my story and the impact on my home, livelihood and local services. Before building in North Orange in 2007, I lived in 54 Kieran Avenue in Orange. We purchased a project home at 54 Kieran Avenue, not a Department of Housing residence. At that stage, there were 5 Department of Housing houses on top of the hill within a 4-block radius. After a while, Department of Housing built around us, and after that, my husband left me with 2 children to raise on my own. I was forced to live in the ghetto area and try and raise my children. The house depreciated in value. I could not sell and go anywhere. And everybody knows that the eyesore of the Coombe Shopping Centre, as an example, yet to come. For years I've worked hard to keep a roof over our heads. Children left home and then I was afraid to live in the ghetto on my own. I had a chance to sell 54 Kibben Avenue in the ghetto, take my losses and go and find an area to live in. That's when I purchased some land in Palomaro Street, North Orange. There were 3 existing homes there in 2007, and mine, third, was the duplex. I built a duplex and I have a rental property. I do not put money into my superannuation. As a duplex, I thought the duplex would cover it. Since 2007 to 2018, I have watched a lovely North Orange suburb transform and grow into a diverse, incredible place to live.
Ms. Houlihan, you're getting close, quick.
Yep, okay. I still love this area and I understand the rules. However, I'd like to know whether this application is in keeping with development of our subdivision. I have been a resident and part of the Orange community for over 60 years. I accept that changes may happen, but the community and the residents need to be involved so we can give a voice to these changes. We need to have our own say in preserving the indemnity of our homes and area and achieve good outcomes overall. I would also like to campaign our local government to change the local planning rules
Houlihan, I'm going to have to pull you up
and
there. You've had
regulations.
3 minutes, sorry.
Yes. I'll just read that last bit again. I would like to campaign the local government to change and local planning rules and regulations. At the moment, it seems as though history is repeating itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Houlihan. Can I just remind everyone too that all your submissions are in here, and I guarantee you they are read. They do go forward as part of the planning process. Next speaker is Glenn Prestwich. Glenn there? Yeah, thanks.
Hi there, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to speak here. I'm a bit nervous, so just bear with me.
You'll be right.
I've lived in Orange all my life. I've purchased a house up there, me and my wife. I'm against the DA of Emerald Street. First hand, I've noticed my parents have lived in Orange for 60 years at Sampson Street, Sampson and Margaret Street. Put up with a lot of stuff with the housing project over there that's going on, such as people harassing them for money, wanting less food. People over in that area don't want to go out. They lock themselves up in the house. It's not a way to live. I'm against the DA. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. Our next speaker is Rochelle Drew. Thank you, Rochelle.
Okay, I'm really nervous.
Don't worry. If you want a drink of water, just sing out. I'm sure Councillor Turner will give you a drink of
It's
water.
got vodka in it.
Yeah. Look, we're having...
Okay.
I agree with you. I'd like it some nights, I can tell you.
Oh dear. Okay, so I stand here tonight extremely nervous, but I feel my voice needs to be heard. I plead that you do not support this clustered development, that you, the council, are elected by us and you are our voice as the ratepayers of Orange, not the developers or the organisations who line their own pockets. I also grew up in lower socio-economic area, Jindalee Avenue. Some call it the ghetto of Orange. I have been in a domestic violence situation with police intervention, and I've been the single mother, and I've raised by myself 2 children to university. I've only just paid their school fees from year 12, and one has been out of university for 3 years. Last year, I was working 2 jobs, 90 hours a week, and why? I'll tell you, it's to escape the very thing that Housing Plus wants to bring to my neighbourhood, clustered housing. Working in community services with troubled youth amongst community houses, I understand people's needs and don't trust one thing Housing Plus has to say just to get this development passed, especially their cunning little act issuing a generic email to get support by having random people sign it like it was a pie drive. Maybe they should have been more diligent, given that one letter of support is from a convicted criminal with an extensive publicised history, and another letter of their support was a submission from a girl that actually assaulted me in my workplace and was charged by police. But that's right, everyone has the right to be safe. What about the publicised arrest recently in Orange of a convicted ice addict? This was in Isley Road. This arrest was conducted in a Housing Plus unit. They aren't even on the lease of this property, so who's going to monitor this? And is it true that there's a convicted murderer in Housing Plus units in Dalton Street from Stockton? Neighbour informed me that he's currently at Bloomfield, but he'll be back. So if there's such a waiting list, as much as 200 I believe, why are people outside of Orange getting relocated? I had family members living in South Terrace on top of each other. This does not work. Even the minister says they do not work. Look at Gordon Estate and Dubbo. You want to place disadvantaged people, give them the opportunity to know their neighbours. Do you honestly expect us to walk into a concealed cul-de-sac and knock on 19 doors? Tell me, does this make me a snob? Does this make me up myself or a NIMBY, as some, including Housing Plus employees, have called me on social media, with particular councillors that sit here tonight before me liking these comments? Emerald Street and Tilapia Way is already congested. Read the complaints in the media, especially on touch football days. You can't deny this.
Rachel, your time's there. Summarise it.
Just a little bit.
Yep.
Take a step back. Think if it was your house, your child's, grandchild's investment, because if these cluster developments get approved, chances are one day it's going to be. So again, I plead with you tonight, do not support this cluster development. You, the council, are elected by us, the residents, the ratepayers, to be our voice. Spread these people out and give them the street frontage and feeling of belonging that they all deserve.
Thank you. For someone that was very... Mind you, it's not a competition, clapping and jeering and so forth. So respect to all of the speakers like you did with the first 4 or 5 speakers. Our next speaker is Joy Johnson. Thank you.
Mayor, councillors and staff, I ask Council to reject the Emerald Street development. I am directly affected. The cluster of 19 units in the small area is not consistent with the properties of North Orange. Housing Plus has changed their mind several times on who will occupy these units. 70% social, 30% affordable, then 50-50, now saying affordable housing. There is no guarantee in the future it won't be 100% social. I have lived in and near Housing Commission areas and I have experienced robbery. I left our home for 25 to 30 minutes. Our front door, including the door jamb, was kicked in, and my most precious items, my wedding engagement eternity ring, which is specially made with 5 diamonds, representing our family, myself, my husband and my 3 sons. My husband's wedding ring and diamond ring, all engraved, was stolen and our bedroom ransacked. This does not include other items. The only saving grace was that our young teenage sons were not at home. I am reminded every day when I look at my left hand, even though insured, I could not afford to replace all the items, not even my eternity ring. My husband and I have worked 2 and 3 jobs, weekends, shift and night work, for over 40 years to buy our forever home in North Orange. This is our asset, which we may need to fund in our aged care in the future. My home should not become our prison with installation and costs of security cameras, locks, screens, etc., just to feel safe. Life is about choices, and our future choices may now be determined by the decision the Council and the JRPP make, which could be life-changing. So I am hoping that the Council can make the right decision and reject the development in the current form for the ratepayers of North Orange. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Johnson. Next speaker is Philip Johnson.
Good evening, Mr Mayor, fellow councillors, staff and public. I ask Council to reject the proposed development at Lot 99 Emerald Street. It does not fit in with the character of existing neighbourhood. Nowhere else are there 19 1- and 2-bedroom homes with carports anywhere near North Orange. This concentration of households will create a Housing Commission stigma to the existing area. This development will have a lasting devaluing effect on the surrounding houses. Housing Plus have changed their story on who will be living in the houses. In the State of Environmental Effects dated September 2019, it says 40% affordable, 70% social housing. On the DA application, it was 30% affordable, 70% social, and social being over 50 singles. The 24th of October, David Fisher on ABC Radio said it was 50-50. We also wish to bring to your attention some anomalies with the Housing Plus cost of development. which comes in at 5.3 million, especially with contingencies. Design and consultant fees of 405,000 and contingency fees of 250,000. Just design consultant fees and contingency fees, 655,000. The contingency fee is 75% of the design fee. Also, there is a construction contingency, 150,000. Cost escalation of 60,000, whatever that is. The total for these is $460,000. Overall, builders' preliminary fees and charges total 1.36 million. The residents had a second quantity surveyor's report done by Spicer Consultants in Sydney, which you all have a copy of. This report was also generous with the costs and contingencies, which came in at 4.9 million. Spicer allowed $1,800 per square metre to build, as opposed to 1,740 square metres for the Housing Plus. The local average is $1,500 a square metre. In Housing Plus planning, is Housing Plus planning that bad that their fees seem exorbitant, or are Housing Plus trying to take approval for the development away from council? Again, I ask council to reject the proposed development. It does not fit in with the existing neighbourhood. It will create a Housing Commission stigma to North Orange. It will have a lasting devaluing effect on the surrounding area. Housing Plus plans on who will be living in the houses are as flexible as their budget. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Johnson. Our next speaker is Sunita Kumar.
Thank you. Chairman, CEO and councillors. Today I'm here to urge you not to support the DA in its current form. There are a number of flaws and stigma attached to such developments, which is counterproductive to the objectives of safe and secure social and affordable housing in Orange. I want to impress to you, councillors and the public, that I, as a ratepayer, support social and affordable housing, but not in the form of multi-dwelling cluster units as presented in this DA. What is the proponent social and housing policy? Nobody knows. I don't know whether one exists. We have heard proponents say 70-30 social affordable in one place. On ABC on 24 October as 50-50. We've also heard that there will be nobody below 55. I don't know it's true, but are we building a retirement village? We don't know. So people do become distrustful when they are lied to or where message is not consistent. The council has put in a condition 42, the dwelling shall be occupied by tenants eligible for affordable housing as defined in State Environmental Planning Policy 2009. Let me tell you what the SEP is about. The SEP was introduced on 31st of July 2009. The policy's intent is to facilitate the increased supply and diversity of affordable rental and social housing in New South Wales. Why include this as a condition if the DA is already about social and affordable housing? This inclusion by the council is misleading and gives false assurance that the council is limiting tenants to affordable housing. I'd like that to be checked out. This community is actually flabbergasted that such blatant misuse of taxpayer funds by the proponent is not being investigated by the relevant authorities. After a number of failed applications, did the proponent change its behaviour? No. We have community members who are much more capable of getting this right as they have the qualification, experience, research and development mindset.
Summarise now, please.
Why not consult with these communities to get it right for the people who need it so badly? The amount of mental anguish that the proponent caused me, my family, and my friends cannot be quantified. The proponent has caused stigmatization of the proposed resident buyoff segregation to cluster housing and not the North Orange residents. They should immediately cease all such requests, as taxpayer funds are used to cause mental stress and not to build houses. Finally, please do not support this DA in this format and accept the consultative hands reaching out for better outcomes for everyone. We give you help. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Kumar. Next speaker is Tandra Kumar.
Thank you, Orange City Council Mayor, Council staff and councillors. Look, I'll keep it brief because 2 minutes is not a lot of time, but really, I like many of my colleagues, like to oppose the multi-dwelling cluster unit development as proposed. I support housing and underprivileged, but not in the way it's presented in the DA. Pops Road, Lantana Place, now North Orange. Has the council or the proponent or anybody beyond looked at why there's so much anger in public, especially in the community out there? DA proposes to invest significant taxpayers' dollars. Somebody's jobs will be done. It is us, the community, the ratepayers, the council, the police, the medical fraternity. The list goes on. We'll be the ones who are bearing costs because it is obvious out there in the community. I urge the council not to support the DA in the current form because it's well known and there are published social impact on that, and I've outlined that in my submission. The social impact analysis doesn't meet the Act. It's not locality based. It doesn't impact the impact of social housing on property devaluation. So really, it's not relevant for the current DA. I urge the council to be cognizant of what has not worked in this space. It's public knowledge. I urge the council to be forward-thinking, seek better solutions that will work. Take the proponent back to the drawing board and seek some futuristic social and affordable housing. One that is far, far away, very far away from the repeated failure of the social experiment, the multi-dwelling cluster units of yesteryears. Seek expertise where is necessary. I urge you to stop multi-dwelling cluster units for social and affordable housing in Orange forever and relieve the community from the anguish that we've gone through couple of the subdivisions.
Can you summarise now, sir?
Thank you. If not, we will be here back again and again talking about the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Tony Hogarth.
I'll try and buy my friends some time. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm asking the council to oppose this proposed development in Emerald Street, Orange. The Local Government Act provides for a number of guiding principles for councils, with the first of these being that councils provide strong and effective representation and leadership, planning and decision making. By virtue of this same legislation, council plays the role of a regulator, and critical to modern regulators is the ability and willingness to identify and prepare for emerging issues or risks. Certainly an emerging issue or risk in Orange is the complete lack of genuine community engagement by Housing Plus related to its ongoing endeavours to build cluster housing developments in areas where the proposed style of development is in stark contrast to the existing dwellings. Lack of genuine community engagement has seen a rise in vehement community opposition. This is hardly surprising, and this proposed development is yet another clear example of this. As a resident of Emerald Street, I reside some 9 houses from this site, but at no stage has a representative of Housing Plus contacted me or to discuss this development with me, let alone engage with me on how to best meet the needs of all residents, current and future. A peer-reviewed study by the Australian Housing and Urban Research Institute on understanding and addressing community opposition to affordable housing development found key strategies were for developers to engage with community members, listen to them and be forthcoming with truthful information, and for councils to promote engagement in the development of new policies and recognise the community opposition can improve development outcomes. To date, neither of these have happened. There are some inspiring examples of local councils in Australia who have worked with the community and developed robust, supported policies related to affordable housing. One such example is Port Phillip Council in Victoria. The circumstance we find ourselves here in Orange provides us with an opportunity to be trailblazers in this region. And it's time for Council to demonstrate leadership around this issue and for Housing Plus to be a responsible corporate citizen having regard for all citizens. I'm calling on Housing Plus to withdraw the current development applications in Orange and to constructively engage with Orange Council.
You're just about there.
I'm calling on Orange Council to foster the relationship and for both entities to generally work with the whole community by sponsoring community forums or summits where all interested parties can come together, identify appropriate actions and strive together to achieve these. It's for these reasons I'm asking Council not to support this development.
Thank you very much, Mr Hogarth. Our next speaker is Matthew Ward.
Mayor, councillors, directors, tonight I'm speaking in favour of the Emerald Street development.
As part of the process for this, I was engaged to find sites throughout Orange. The land supply in Orange is tight. The funding requirements from state government who provide the funding for this development have certain criteria that cannot be met in the new estates. They have to be within certain radius of existing facilities. So therefore, infill sites around Orange is what has been targeted and identified. The site that we're talking about here already has DA. The Housing Plus can go there tomorrow and start building what's already been approved, which is about 16 units, I think. Further along Emerald Street is 10 townhouses or terraces, which we also considered, and another site down on Tilapia Way, which is suitable for higher density housing. So this part of Orange already has a number of DA approved high density or medium density dwellings. So what Housing Plus are proposing there is not really out of line with what's going to be there within sort of 2 years. I think that the critical land shortage in Orange doesn't make the job easier. Obviously, if there was more options around, we could do that. But I think the fact that Housing Plus is putting in a new DA gives the opportunity for the community to consult with Housing Plus. If they were really trying to dodge the bullet, they just build what they've already got approved. So for them to go through all this, it's not an easy process for anybody. So I think it's unfair that they're sort of saying the Housing Plus are trying to step around it. They can do that much easier if they want to. As councillors, obviously, you've got to look at what's presented. The facts of the case are what they are. It's hard to make these decisions. They're not always popular ones, but I think if you look at what's being proposed and how they're going to go about it, their track record of what else they do, I think what they're proposing there is in keeping with what's suitable for that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Our next speaker is David Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, David Walker from Premise. We're the town planners who prepared this application that you've got before you tonight. Firstly, we want to thank the council staff for their efforts in assessing this and bringing it forward so quickly. We've reviewed their report and the conclusions and recommendations and wholeheartedly support what they've put forward. Just to clarify, and as was just mentioned, the site at present has approval for 14 double-storey, 3-bedroom dwellings. So that provides a bedroom density on the site at present of 42 bedrooms. The development as proposed is for 19 affordable housing. It's a combination of 1 and 2 bedrooms, providing a bedroom density of 31. So what we're seeing here is, whilst more units, we're in fact seeing a lower density of residents on the site. In our opinion, the assessment, it is our opinion that the development won't adversely impact on the character of the area. It is in keeping, as has been mentioned, with the type of multi-dwelling development that is common in Orange. There are plenty of examples around Orange of this type of development with multiple dwellings on site. The proposal is consistent with the streetscape. Efforts been made to minimise the amount of front fencing, increase the amount of landscaping, consult with neighbours. Amendments to the scheme have been made to reflect the feedback that's been received. There won't be any carports visible from the front entrance. The design of the development is designed to reflect the residential amenity of the area. Traffic that will be generated by the development is very consistent with the current approved development. It is well within the capacity of the road network to accommodate it, and that's been confirmed both by our review and the review of council's technical staff. The development won't impact on the adjacent pedestrian walkway, but it will in fact provide an improved amenity to that through gardens and landscaping. The arrangement for bins, which has been picked up on by a few of the commenters, is very similar to the arrangement for other multi-dwelling developments in Orange, and we're very happy to work with council to make sure that is an arrangement that doesn't detract from the amenity of the area.
I have to summarise now.
Yep, just wrapping right up now. Whilst we note that there is no obligation for any pre-application consultation, Housing Plus have consulted with over 25 residents of the area. Changes to the design have been made to reflect those comments. And just finally, developments of this nature are in the public interest. There is an identified demand for affordable housing within the community. This is therefore important to the whole community that these types of housing are provided, and there is a material public benefit to the community to go forward with these sites of development. And we believe this should be a core matter for consideration in the assessment. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Walker. Our next speaker is Wendy Mason.
Good evening, Mayor Kidd and councillors. My name is Wendy Mason. I'm an Orange City Council ratepayer. I'd like to speak in relation to the issue of affordable housing in Orange and the submission that council may choose to prepare to the development application for Lot 99 Emerald Street. Affordable housing is a very real issue across Australia. A recent City Futures Research Centre report found that more than 1 million extra social housing and affordable homes will be needed in Australia by 2036 to meet growing demand. And that is not just in capital cities. There's a pressing need in Orange right now, and without action, the situation is only going to get worse. The greatest risk we face is kicking this need down the road, putting it on the long finger, and doing nothing. The opportunity cost of that will be felt in our community in the years and even months to come. We're talking here about providing an affordable home to key workers, the nurse who tends you in hospital, the plumbing apprentice who will come and fix your leaky tap, we need that right now, and the aged care worker who will care for your elderly relative. And affordable housing is really not an us and them issue. I think that's really important. It's been said by a couple of people, it's actually an issue for all of us. It's a community issue. There is a public interest here. Affordable housing, the issue needs to be tackled with consideration, facts, planning and care. It requires a coordinated approach with local leadership. Council has a very real role to play in tackling this issue, and I understand that there is a housing strategy being developed with a meeting that will bring key stakeholders together in early December. I'd like to commend and thank those councillors who have taken a public stance on the need to look for solutions right now, to bring those who have an interest in this issue together. Your thoughtful response is appreciated. That brings me to the item on your agenda tonight. I note that while in this instance...
Wendy, you're there. You can summarise.
Okay. A planning decision is not going to be made by you. It's going to be made by the panel. And that there's a recommendation from your senior planner that this is a compliant DA. That's really important. Please note that. The second thing I'd like to draw your attention to is, given this advice, really is there a need for a submission on planning issues? It has to be on planning issues that you're providing your advice around that submission. And finally, please continue to have a future-focused, strategic and evidence-driven approach to addressing this issue of affordable housing in Orange for the sake of all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Our next speaker is Julianne Potts.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to lend my support to the proposal. Look, honestly, I think as a ratepayer of Orange, I think there's been quite a lot of confusion, and I myself was confused between the old, Housing Commission, put up all those houses up in Glenroy, lots of trouble, compared to what Housing Plus do. Housing Plus do a lot of consultation. They make a lot of amendments to what they do. This actual proposal is for working people on low income. So most of this town is on a lower income. They work in shops, they're aged care workers, they are apprentices, they've just come out of uni. It's a whole range of people, and we have a shortage of decent rentals. And so I think it's really important that we do look at having more affordable housing. So, and in a nutshell, I'd like to say I spent most of my early days as an adult bringing up a child on my own in a housing commission house, and never once was I broken into. Saved and saved and saved and bought my own house. In 5 years I got broken into. My car was broken into and others 8 times, and my house once, and it had its door bashed in while I was on night duty. So, yeah, sorry. But that can happen anywhere, and ice addicts are everywhere too. So, yeah.
Thank you, Julianne. Our next speaker is Francis Young.
Mr Mayor, councillors, directors. Zonda Club of Orange strongly supports this most important project at Emerald Street. Zonda International, which has status with the United Nations, works locally and internationally for the welfare of women and their families. We believe in and accept as truth the specific parameters announced by Housing Plus in their application, that accommodation will be only individuals and families of good working income and for over 55s on the age pension. Societal trend data show that one of the groups most likely to become homeless consists of women over 55. We believe the council must give this group the opportunity to live in acceptable conditions. We are also aware that those who earn relatively low wages and are often members of the groups which provide essential services to our community need assistance as they struggle to be able to maintain and support a family. Studies in Australia and overseas demonstrate that the most effective way to build a cohesive and tolerant society is for neighbourhoods to have a mix of housing so that we all learn through personal experience that we have no more need to fear new neighbours than those we already have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frances. Our next speaker will be Amanda Spalding.
Good evening, Mr Mayor and councillors. I'm speaking in support of the positive submission going to the Joint Regional Planning panel. Affordable rental properties are scarce in Orange as it is, and with the announcements over the past weeks of the new jobs being created through health and mining industries, this will place even more pressure on an already stretched market. So a combination of lower wages and increasing rents and housing prices means that people in regional New South Wales are doing it tougher than almost anywhere else in Australia, going without many essentials, including food, just to pay the rent. I'm actually very interested to know who provided potential objectors with this form that a lot of people have filled in that says, tick here for your main reasons for objection, and it includes property devaluation, personal welfare of families and children, and increasing criminal activity. By a strange coincidence of timing, my article in today's Orange City Life is about planning matters and issues that are not planning matters. And on Council's agenda today is also the Council's Community Participation Plan for approval that includes a reminder of matters that can and cannot be taken into consideration in assessing development applications. The following are not planning matters and cannot be given weight by assessing officers in their decision-making role. Speculation on devaluation of property or private market fluctuations, character assessments of the developer, future neighbours or anyone else, hearsay as to what other neighbours would or would not be concerned about, assumed bad faith or non-compliance with road rules or other laws. And that's for guidance to community members making a submission to object to a development application, staff making the assessment and councillors making the decision.
Amanda.
Yep, okay. So the form that's been provided to objectors to complete and send back to council is misleading in that these matters cannot be taken into consideration in making planning decisions, but it's not just misleading, it's also irresponsible in promoting community disharmony.
Thank you, Amanda. Our next speaker is Sarah Priestley.
I'd like to speak in support of the application at Emerald Street. I have recently had the privilege of tenanting 22 brand new homes built under the same program that this development forms part of. Tenants lived ordinary, secure lives until crisis hit, a cancer diagnosis, a no grounds termination from a landlord looking to sell their property, an accident resulting in disability, or more commonly, simply ageing with a decline in mobility that their former housing could not accommodate.
Now I've had tenants approach me in the street and invite me in to see how they've decorated their new home. They wave hello while they're walking their children home from school, and they share how fortunate they feel to be in their homes, building friendships with their neighbours. They are embracing this opportunity as if their lives depended on it, and as a result, they are thriving. Our affordable housing tenants work in a range of fields: a salesperson at an electrical goods store, a disability support worker, an aged care assistant, just to name a few. The response has been so strong that I already have a wait list for homes that will become available next year. Amongst these applications, a hospital assistant, a waitress, a personal care assistant, all of which have aspirations to own their own home by furthering their chosen careers. I'm consistently approached by eligible people in Orange earning a single income between $37,000 and $87,000 who need the same opportunity. Affordable housing is a step up that our tenants needed. Councillors, now we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to provide the same step up for the people of Orange with the provision of these affordable homes. Today's affordable housing tenants are our parents. They are our grandparents. They are our community. They are also our future homeowners, our future volunteers, caregivers and mentors. They are our workforce. Orange City Councillors, this development is needed. This development is compliant, and this is the way forward for our city.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Our next speaker is Bev Rankin.
Mr Mayor and councillors, I work with Fusion, a youth and community organisation. I'm also the chairperson of the Orange and District Ministers Association and a member of the Uniting Church. Last Thursday night, a 55-plus-year-old woman with grey hair, probably not dissimilar to me, but it wasn't me, slept in the playground at the Uniting Church on a couple of mattresses that two gentlemen provided for her because they went somewhere else to find another place to sleep for the night. It's a real problem in our community. I am aware of a married couple who do foster care who have the support of the Department of Communities and Justice. Currently, they are living with the foster child and other children in the care of other relatives because they can't find affordable housing. I'm also aware of two teenagers who recently became homeless simply because mum and dad, who had both repartnered, mum had to move to smaller accommodation because she was her tenancy had ended, so they had to move on. Why can't they live with dad? Because he and his new partner and 4 children are already sleeping in a garage belonging to other friends. Affordable housing is a very real need in our community, and I'm a proud house owner in Algona Crescent. I used to live in Calare. I called the police to neighbours' houses in Calare in a nice leafy suburb more often than I've called the police to Algona Crescent. So you can't pick your neighbours. There are good neighbours and bad neighbours everywhere, and we need affordable housing.
Thank you very much, Bev. Our next speaker is David Stanley.
Mayor Kidd, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, I'm David Stanley, Housing Plus's project manager for this development, and I speak in support of it. I want to comment regarding the capital investment value, or the CIV, for the development. To ensure we address the strict requirements for a CIV, we engaged local and well-respected QS Greg Sieb, who often works for council. He calculated a CIV for Emerald of 5.3 million. Council has reduced this to 5.18 million for reasons that we don't dispute. An objector engaged a Sydney-based QS, as you've heard, who valued the development at 4.46 million, or 11% below the $5 million threshold for the JRPP referral. We presume that QS did not go to site and does not know the Orange construction market. Their valuation is based on October 2018 prices, which are way too low. And as you heard from a previous speaker, we allowed $60,000 in escalation to take us up to 2021 when our construction will finish. The valuation does not state that it's prepared in accordance with CIV requirements. Ours is. It's based on an indicative square metre rate only. Ours is based on detailed rates for each construction element. It's based on a low standard of design and finishes. Ours is based on a silver standard and other Livable Housing Australia design guidelines, which is a much higher design standard. It is not allowed for the BASIX requirements, which in Orange means double glazing and under slab insulation. It's not allowed for 6-star NATAS requirements or for solar panels. We have. All of these criteria substantially add to the cost of a residential building development and are allowed for in our CIV. Housing Plus is confident that our CIV is within expectations for a development of this nature. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stanley. Our next speaker is Daryl Hare.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, councillors and staff. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. I speak in support of the Emerald Street development. My background, my family moved to Orange in 1957 when I was a little boy, a very little boy, and my father was a World War II veteran. We stayed with an army colleague up in Buna Street in Glenroy, and there were a lot of us kids in a 3-bedroom house in Glenroy. That was a Housing Commission rental property. My father went onto the Housing Commission waiting list for a rental house and was finally granted when the Cassie Crescent project was completed on the edge of town, would you believe? We were a low-income family. There's no doubt about that. Without the assistance of the then Housing Commission, my parents would not have been able to continue working and living in Orange, which would have been a big shame. I personally felt no stigma in living in a Housing Commission property. Sense of community that was evident, and the friends that I made along the way remain an important part of my life to this day. I'm concerned at recent comments attributed to some councillors during the debate over a rescission motion that an already approved Housing Plus project to build on a small parcel of land in Lantana Place. Comments made in an effort to justify the rescission motion, such as safety concerns and that criminals and pedophiles will be granted access to rental properties in Lantana Place, are without foundation. Other comments that have been made in public forums are that the applicants will be on welfare. Is it not their democratic right to apply for welfare if they're entitled to it and receive that welfare? Such comments, again, are ill-conceived, and I dare I say it, they're unconscionable in this day and age, and especially coming from some of our elected representatives. It was clear from the original DA, from Housing Plus, the accommodation would only be granted to applicants who were or were considered able to obtain employment. This would be in line with normal checks made by any real estate agent prior to signing a rental lease. It becomes clear to me that some councillors...
First ball to the last over, mate.
That's right. Some councillors decided by default that all applicants for affordable housing pose a risk to the people of Orange. This type of thinking defies belief. It places the City of Orange as being a place for the less fortunate sections of our community and population are not considered welcome. Not the Orange I grew up in. There's no reason for it to be so. I urge you to approve or recommend the approval of Lot 99 Emerald Street. Is a compliant development application, and it will be best for Orange to do so. Thank you.
Thanks, Darryl. Our next speaker is Rochelle Monaghan.
Thank you everyone for the opportunity to speak tonight. There were 190 letters of support for this development lodged during the DA process. There's also been a lot of misinformation and untruths being spread within the community, and I'd like to take this opportunity to set the record straight in regards to Housing Plus and the properties we manage. We are applying to build affordable rental homes for people that live in the Orange community. Housing Plus currently manages 286 rental properties across all parts of Orange. When issues are brought to our attention, we act swiftly, within one day. Our properties do not have rubbish on the front lawns and are not boarded up. This rental accommodation is for over 55s and working people on low to moderate income. Think early career professionals, your teachers, your nurses, your childcare workers. Housing Plus has a strict tenant allocation process where potential tenants are required to demonstrate their ability to sustain a tenancy. This development is not transitional housing or a halfway house for criminals and is in no way associated with the parolee or post-release service. Housing Plus will own these properties and are bound by a 25-year contract to manage these properties. We will maintain the common areas and to ensure the property is in keeping with the neighbourhood. According to the Social Impact Analysis report supplied with this DA and developed by the Western Research Institute, concerns that antisocial behaviour and crime occur around affordable housing is not evidenced by the research findings. The monitoring of the circumstances of those detained for criminal activities indicate that housing of detainees is more likely to have been unstable or temporary at the time of their detainment. Affordable housing is neither unstable or temporary. In addition, the report shows the evidence that this type of affordable rental development does not reduce local property prices. Housing Plus is not Housing Commission or public housing. We have been delivering affordable houses across Orange for over 30 years. I urge the Council to support this DA. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rochelle. And our final speaker, Mr. David Fisher.
Thank you, Mayor, councillors, for providing me with this opportunity to present on the affordable rental property development in North Orange. I'm David Fisher. I am CEO of Housing Plus, and I recommend the council to support this proposal. As you've heard tonight, the Orange rental market is already under pressure. Many working households across the city, be they in rental accommodation or in home ownership, are increasingly finding it as an unaffordable city to live in. We must find ways to reduce the pressure on the rental market. The loss of rental properties to offices, the loss of rental properties to Airbnb, and the loss of properties to families who would otherwise buy their home but can't afford because prices have risen so high means that there are fewer properties to rent in Orange. Over the next 12 months, we will see an expansion of mining and health sectors, with more people moving into the city and needing somewhere to live. This will put further pressure on the rental market. Without an increase in more affordable housing, rents will rise. Landlords may well take their property off the rental market, which will lead to more families trying to find a house from an ever-reducing number of rental properties. Housing Plus wishes to help, but it needs the help of council and others to work together. As a not-for-profit organisation, we are committed to providing secure, affordable housing in the city. This is a complying proposal for new affordable properties that will bring immediate help to those in need and assist the city to manage the planned expansion of mining and health sectors that are planned to take place in the next 12 months. I hope that the Council can tonight support this proposal and recommend it to the JRPP for approval.
Thanks, Mr. Fisher. Ladies and gentlemen, that finishes the forum. We'll go into the council meeting in a moment. Firstly, can I just say to the speakers, you will be contacted by the panel on when a meeting is to be held and how you can address the JPP panel. So if anyone doesn't get contact the council and we can make sure that you are. And then once we get into our debate in a moment, that will be for councillors, firstly to decide whether make a submission or not to the JPP. If that is yes, then the staff will compile any questions that councillors have, points in a submission to the panel. It's a process, okay? And look, I would like to thank you all for showing courtesy to all the speakers. It's not easy getting up there, so I congratulate you all on your behaviour. I will now go back into the normal council meeting, and 3.1 is confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Orange City Council held on the 22nd of October.
Move recommendations.
Got a seconder? Sorry. Second, Councillor Romano. All in favour? Hands, please. Against? Thank you. The council meeting will adjourn for the conduct of the policy committees. Planning and Development Policy Committee is Councillor Turner, and I'd suggest that I'll just do the first item for you, Councillor Turner.
I suggest that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Sorry, yeah. 2.2, yeah. You all can't be perfect. Then the declarations, please. I've got a declaration of pecuniary interest. Oh, not pecuniary, of an interest from Councillor Turner. Will someone approve that, please? Seconder? Pravatara, all in favour, show of hands, please. Right, councillors, you have item 2.2 in front of you, development application DA 305/219 in brackets 1, lot 99, Emerald Street.
Recommendation, Mr Mayor.
Got a seconder? Councillor Miletto, thank you. Councillor Munro.
I know, councillors, that we need social housing. I empathise people are living around it. I support social housing, Salt and Peppered. That way you don't have this is my personal opinion, have play or a
Just a reminder, this is not social housing.
I know.
This is affordable housing, the DA.
Housing. Well, same sort of thing.
No, it's not.
What that's a perception is.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, me, I'm not going to support this because I believe it could be better. Planning could be development. Time. Subdivision. Lot. Or it's even subdivided blocks for social housing or type of development. It'll be much better because at the time a developer comes to purchase a acres and develop it, he knows that houses, whatever it might be, there's 20 put aside for that sort of use. And I do think that probably go through. I job elected. Can try and change things. Be able to have a better way of doing this sort of.
Yeah. Look, just before any other councillor speaks, I'll just remind you of the recommendation. One is the council has resolved the information contained in the report, and as you know, that's going to the JPP. What we're really here to discuss, whether the council determine whether or not to make a submission to that. Okay? And look, Councillor Miletto, with your perseverance, I'd ask Mr Fisher, can he give us a definition of affordable and social housing and how this application is 100% affordable housing? Yep, thank you.
Appropriate, Mr Mayor, during a debate.
Councillor McKay, I'll ask the question. David? Yep.
Of order, Mr Mayor. Is this appropriate in a DA?
Just asked the question. Thank you. Overruled. Thank you, Mr Fisher. I just want to know the definition. I want to know just the definition so it's clear for the councillors, affordable versus social housing, and this development is affordable.
Director of Planning sitting right there, you probably know. Part of the debate.
I'm overruling you, Councillor Whitten. Thanks, Mr Fisher.
This proposal is for affordable housing under the under the SEP. So under that definition, it covers low to medium income households. That's what we're applying and for this proposal under. I'm not a planning expert, but there's people in the room that could confirm that. But I believe that is the case.
Thank you. Can you? Okay, thank you. Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I stand in support of a mission sent to the JPP. And councillors, this DA has raised a lot of issues, but it hasn't always been about the size of development. Unfortunately, it's been most about the perceived character of the potential tenants going to those units or houses. We're elected councillors to represent the collective interest of residents, ratepayers and the local community. It is not our responsibility to pass judgment on the character of the tenants likely to occupy the development, but address the specific concerns of the neighbours and whilst recognising the interest of the developer trying to fulfil their aim of creating affordable housing in Orange that we so desperately are short of at the present time. I'm concerned about the misinformation and untruths that I've read, correspondence which has been sent to me, or being spread throughout the community with respect to properties in Orange that are managed by Housing Plus. In particular, 59 Margaret Street, where such comments, in my view, have been circulated in an attempt to obstruct affordable housing build in Orange. My understanding that 59 Margaret Street is not a Housing Plus property. This property is owned and managed by Housing New South Wales, not Housing Plus, which is a completely separate organisation. I'm concerned about misleading information and advice that has been given to objectors regarding non-planning matters, such as the speculation of devaluation of property or private market fluctuations, negative character assessments and the development and personal attacks on staff at Housing Plus, stereotyping of future tenants and the inaccurate hearsay information that is being circulated on social media. Social impact assessment is not a tool to stop development, but is to assist the assessment of development proposals so that the best development results. Based on the information which I've been provided, the new development in Emerald Street is restricted to working class families and those over 35. My understanding that Housing Plus also provides support that links tenants and training and employment with the aim of exiting social housing over time and supporting over 55 wellbeing. Are we saying that these people aren't worthy of being part of the North Orange community? If these people aren't worthy, then can somebody explain to me who are the people who are worthy? There are many councillors who, if the need arose, would fit into their criteria of being eligible for affordable housing. Are you saying that yourself aren't a worthy person of living in affordable housing, judging by the range of income of 37 to 87,000? Are you saying that you aren't worthy to living in that, being elected people of the community? I agree with the properties are essential to support the Orange growth and as an affordable place to live. These are residents of Orange who simply need a home and are not reflective that has been present as social and affordable tenants. I believe that everyone in the community deserves safe and affordable housing. I note that the Council have given consideration and assessment of the social impact and development and been considered in a number of sections of the DA report that I have previously been provided. Assessing social impacts are not challenging to identify and understand and how to measure. It's very difficult to do that. Council staff have recommended approval, having been assessed the DA against the criteria of the New South Wales housing regulations. Therefore, to go with the recommendation of council staff may send a message to the community homeowners who are the more worthy people and those in our society to rely on affordable housing.
Need an extension.
Thank you.
Councillor Nugent, seconded please. Councillor McRae.
Housing Plus is deemed to be a worthwhile organisation that has been established on good practices and policies and is seen by the New South Wales Government as being a worthy recipient of housing funding to house and more valuable in our society. It's also my understanding that Housing Plus support all its tenancies to ensure that they are good neighbours. I acknowledge that some residents have some genuine concerns regarding the development. However, based on the information which I've been providing, I believe that development application is within the rules and I support the recommendation to proceed to the JPP.
Thank you. Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I suppose the speakers all spoke very well tonight, and concerns aren't from those who live in the areas about these types of dwellings being built in existing areas. And while some of the speakers were talking about planning law, and they're dead right, in planning law, the DA has to be judged on its merits under planning law. Staff approve it or they refuse it, comes to us, and then we basically debate it and away it goes. But under planning law, you who own land in an area where a development is going to go have no rights. No rights, right? So there is no provision in planning law about what you think about the development that is going to be built near you. It does not exist. So when a DA comes to council, laws, and planning staff approve it, we are toothless tigers. We are probably giving you a false sense of anything to do with saying that we can help you by refusing it. Because we can't. We're actually giving you a false sense. Now, the only time the councillors have any control over your concerns is on election day when they want you to vote for them. Then you are important people. You have to vote. But up until then, in a DA application, planning law, your opinion means zero. It means zero. If something near you is going to impact your life, your neighbours' lives, or your area that you live in, you have no say. That's a fact. Fact. And I've seen it here in 17 years that really we're giving you a false sense of opinion or security if we vote down an application. Because if the developer takes it to the Land and Environment Court and they have approval from the registered councils that it has approval, it will 98% of the time get up. And that's the way the rules are. What can I say to you? This is going to the JRPP. Again, council has no say over the matter before the JRPP. We are like any person in this room who has written submissions. We will write a submission if we believe that there are things need changing, and they will judge our submission along with every other submission as a simple submission to the JRPB. So there is a concern in the community about affordable housing in two factors. Yes, we do need affordable housing. That is a fact. The problem we're dealing with as a council is that the majority of the applications are going in existing subdivisions. Now, council has spoken here before about we need to have a look at that. Why not look at new subdivisions that don't have any areas in it and look to doing it there? Now, we can't dictate that to developers. Don't say to a developer or to the application of a DA that you must put something here, because that is against planning law and we can get in a bit of trouble because of that. But later on tonight, we're going to be debating a planning and development community participation plan. Community participation flies in the face of planning law. Community participation can say, well, we want to have certain zones of types of land, subdivisions over here.
Councillor Whitten, you need an
areas over
extension. Councillor Hamling, second. Councillor Romano, all in favour? Aye, thanks. Yep. You're right.
And then it goes to the planning department in Sydney and they say, no, you can't have those subdivisions there and you can't have those constructions areas there and you can't have commercial places there. So, but when it comes to a physical DA being built, the only way you can stop a DA being built is to own the land next to you. That is about the only way. And I think we need to tell you that. I don't think it's been explained to the community of Orange that we have no say as councillors, council staff. They have every say because they are the people who work within, are guided by the laws under planning on whether a DA is approved or not approved, right? So we are simply instruments that are rubber stamping a approval, because if we refuse it, we must have planning law a reason to refuse it. If we don't have a reason to refuse it, it gets shot down. So in this particular instance, the sad thing is that we don't and can't refuse it. It'll go to the JRPP. They will approve it, and I'm not speaking for the JRPP in all likelihood. will be approved.
Time's up.
But
Councillor Whitty.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. But you need to be told.
Councillor Newsom.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, yeah, just coming back to what we're here to do tonight, which is to note the staff's report, the report that's going to the JRPP by the staff, by our professional staff, and to decide whether we are going to make a submission. I would say we should make a submission. I think we should go out and be positive about this and talk about why there's a need for social and affordable housing. This is affordable housing, but there's a need for both, city. And I think we should be going out and saying that very clearly. It is in our community strategic plan that we work with community service organisations like Housing Plus to facilitate the provision of affordable housing in this city. That's one of the things that went into our community strategic plan. And I was at the Local Government New South Wales annual conference recently. There was a session on the new planning system, and I think the planning system's already fairly complicated, and I think it's, from what I heard at that session, it's going to get even more complicated. And the community participation that Councillor Whitten refers to is part of that new process. So I think I think we need to be making a submission and stating very clearly about the need for it. I think just about everyone that's spoken tonight everyone I think that has spoken has said that they recognise that there's a need for social and affordable housing in the city. I don't think anyone's disputing that. So, and we've heard that there's going to be upward pressure on rental prices due to mine expansion and other expansion in the city. We've heard from Bev Rankin about that there are homeless people living in this city. And I was there at the church that night when those people were sleeping in the playground. So it's a very real issue. I do have some sympathy for the neighbours who are concerned about what is going to happen, concerned about the unknown, concerned about change. We all get fearful about change, but what we also need to take into consideration is the need in the wider community for this sort of housing. The need, as people have said, for older people living alone, the need for people with disability who are living on disability support pension, people with maybe cancer diagnosis, people who have suffered marriage breakup and have had to move out. There's a real, genuine need for this housing, and we should be saying very clearly, I don't have a problem if the submission reflects the diversity of views of councillors as well as the diversity of views amongst the community. I think that's right and appropriate. But I think I'd like part of the submission to at least reflect my view and views of other councillors that there's a genuine need. This is a development that is complying as far as I can see, and as already been said, there is already a DA approved for that site, which someone could start building tomorrow. Housing Plus could start building tomorrow, which would produce a more intensive development of that site. So it's not it's not really about whether housing cluster, that term has been used. It's that sort of development happens all around the city already. So the concerns seem to be about the fact that it's affordable housing that is under debate, and hopefully some of the discussion, some of the presentations that have been made have cleared up some of those concerns about affordable housing and who lives in affordable housing. So I know my time's just about up, but I would like to strongly support making a submission to reflect the diversity of views, but particularly the positive support for this development.
Just ask the question, is there anyone against making a submission?
Yeah, I made me there, I think. I was clear when I spoke.
Yeah. Are you for or against council making the submission.
Oh, well, you make a submission, but I'll be against it.
Make a submission, but add things, I think he's
Yeah,
saying.
you can add things.
Comments.
I'm against it, Mr Mayor. If that wasn't clear, I'm against it. Because even though it doesn't really matter because we have no...
We have no real say, but
Waste time.
I disagree with it.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, my comments are related to making a positive submission, but I do have perhaps some concerns, as mentioned, that have been highlighted by both speakers tonight, and some concerns relating to the proposal. I first would like to say that I am viewing this as a planning matter. We've had a lot of, I think it's been some divisive debate in the community and in our local media and on social media regarding about the people, where they live, their level of income and their life journey, whether they're being unfortunately targeted as nearby residents, and that's very sad to hear that they have been seen as being NIMBYs, but also the concerns about the need for affordable housing. So I don't want to remark on the characteristics of future residents, and I also don't want to negate the real concerns and fears of current residents. But we do have some serious issues to address in our community about workforce pressures and key industry workers, but also about services and people who are relocating to Orange from further afield, particularly for our health services, medical needs, and particularly where people are choosing to relocate because we have transitional services available in our community. Those are valid reasons, and they do weigh upon me in this debate, but I come back to the planning reasons. In regards to whether it is in keeping with the neighbourhood, the character of the neighbourhood, the consistency of the buildings, I do need to come back to the fact there's a 16-lot community title approved by the previous council for this site. That's 14 two-storey, three-bedroom residences. And I, having read those previous papers, note that there were concerns about the solar access for two-bedroom residences in Orange's climate that did not have good solar access, and that it was a very intensive development. But it was approved, and so it sets a standard that we, I think, need to judge this development against. It does suggest that it will be in keeping with the neighbourhood. It was approved then by council in 2015 and 2017. And I note that there was little community opposition in 2015 and 2017. And I actually concur with Councillor Whitten that often there is poor communication with prospective purchasers about what might be built near you. And I think that we need to be much more cognisant as consumers. We need to engage with asking council or asking real estate agents for the plans in newer developments. We see this often coming to council as being an issue of why are there multi-unit dwellings being proposed for what I thought would be a quiet cul-de-sac. And I think that we need to be much more aware of consumers and be much more informed about where we can get the information rather than, in some cases, really efficient, confident building sales speak from the professionals in the real estate industry. And I acknowledge they have a job to do, but it's skewed with the job to do. I support this application because it is a better solution for the solar amenity. It's better designed for our climate and for the future residents. I think there are minimal traffic impacts based on the, in effect, lower density of number of bedrooms and number of residents, potentially. I do have concerns about garbage. The idea of 57 garbage bins. Why on earth a one-bedroom unit needs 3 full-size garbage bins, the same as every 3 or 4-bedroom house in Orange, amazes me. But that's perhaps a further discussion not related to this matter. But I do note that 57 garbage bins takes up almost as much space as one of those proposed one-bedroom units. I do think that this is a better solution, and I will support council's positive submission, noting those particular concerns.
Councillor
Mayor, very quickly, I don't want to go over what everyone else has just said. I think we've all heard it. You know, I agree. We do need affordable housing. Where it goes, that's been coming back to us for the last couple of years, which has been made a very hot topic, and I'm sure the residents who have been through it are very nervous about change and all that sort of thing. But I support a positive submission to the planning department because, as most of the councillors said, we can only go back to what's been put in front of us, and that's an approval by our planning staff. So, yeah, I'll be supporting it.
Any other speakers? There's no other speakers. I'll put it. All in favour of making a submission on the application? Hands, please. Got to have hands up. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 4 making a submission. Against, put your hands right up. Up in the air so everyone can see. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So council will make a submission. Thank you very much for that. Can someone get councillor?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, point of order. Have we actually voted on part 1, the acknowledgement of the report? That was part of that vote.
Councillor Turner, please. Lost him. We did.
If I may.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. We've dealt with 2.1 and 2.2 of the Planning Development Committee. We move on to 2.3.
No, we didn't do 2.1.
Oh, right. I thought you were going. Sorry.
Sorry,
right.
no,
Okay.
First would be good. No, I've got to do. Yeah, declarations of pecuniary interests. Yeah. Mr. Chairman, item 2.4. I live in close proximity as the crow flies, so on past DAs in this particular area for this same parcel of land, declared an interest which is non-pecuniary and shall leave the chamber once you get to item 2.4.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten. So we move on to 2.1. Is that correct? Right.
Move,
okay.
Mr. Chair.
Move Councillor Hamling, seconded Councillor Kidd. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise your hands. Against? Carried. We now go on to 2.3. Planning and Development Community Participation Plan for 2019. Moved Councillor Nugent, seconded Councillor McRae. Any discussion? Councillor Nugent.
Yeah, look, I think it's worth having, talking about this item. Briefly, I think it's going to pass. We have to have a community participation plan. It's been dictated by the state government. But, it is an important part of the planning process, and to some extent it relates to the item that we've just dealt with, as Councillor Whitten alluded to during his speech just before. And part of the point of these, the community participation plan, is to get more active involvement in the planning process at the strategic planning process. That's one of the stated aims, rather than when we get to the DA stage. So trying to get community input participation at an earlier stage so that issues like, well, in new developments, is there some land set aside for affordable and sociable housing? That could be dealt with at that needs to be dealt with at the strategic planning stage. I do also have some sympathy for Councillor Whitten's comments about, in relation, I don't agree that councils are toothless tigers, and I don't agree that, community doesn't have any say. Community does have say, councils have a say in planning decisions, and I've seen plenty of robust debate and a lot of amendment to conditions made as a result of submissions made from members of the community. Maybe it doesn't ultimately change the decision, but there is a lot of opportunity for input, and this plan is about, as far as I can see, trying to ensure that that input happens at the earliest possible stage. So, look, I think, you know, it's the work that's gone into developing the community participation plan for Orange is good work. I do note the submissions that have been made by Housing Plus, by Amanda Spalding and Ewan Greer, I think it is, and the comments made there were very helpful in sort of tweaking the participation plan. I think it is important. I note that there's on page 590, we talk about the plan being available online, and that their hard copies will be available. But I think we need to sort of get out on the front foot with this and really promote its the fact that the plan is there, that we've adopted it, and what it is that the plan is all about. It's quite a complex document in some respects. I do note on the top of page 591 that we're talking, I think the council communications team is looking at a range of materials to try and promote the awareness of this community participation plan. And I think infographics seem to be, you know, all the go these days, and I'd like to see some infographics develop, some flowcharts, and flowchart and infographics, which are two different things, but to try and explain to the community what it is that this plan is about. And these plans are only as good as their promotion and their use. So I'm happy to support it, but let's tell the community what it is and how it benefits them.
Councillor Nugent, any other? Councillor McRae.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Look, just briefly, I think key items for me are on page 633, which is really emphasising the community notification processes, utilising not only the local newspaper, but also having on the council website a list of all the incoming development applications. Also that it continues to advertise developments separately in the local newspaper. But I think that the real emphasis for me, and that's been something I've learnt over the short time I've been on council, is council's role as a neutral negotiator. And that councillors do not take a decision side before a planning matter is addressed in this chamber, but sometimes it's perceived by our community that for whatever reason we've already picked a side. And I think that it's important to recognise that neutral negotiation role, and the neutrality is something our community should have confidence in and be able to come to council and to council staff to get support on how they can have any concerns addressed and raised. And I congratulate council staff when I have been able to work with them for some of the more complex and I think convoluted planning matters that have come before us. I've always found that their support has been neutral, has been wise, and certainly has been helpful to me. So I just think that they're things that I would like to emphasise in terms of this particular plan and its impact on our community and their understanding of development in Orange.
Motion be put, Mr.
Been moved and seconded. I will put the motion. All those in favour? Hands unanimous. Move on to 2.4, development application 1083 Forest Road, and Councillor Whitton's declared an interest. Leave the room. Eventually. Absolutely. Councillor Munro.
Recommendation. I think, look, you
Need a seconder, don't we? Need a seconder, don't we?
You're moving the recommendation. Yeah, okay. I'll second.
Kid seconded.
No, look, I'm a farmer too, and I old John Deere tractor, and muffler's hanging off, and it's probably louder than his helicopter. No, it's not taken off and going over the neighbour's place, but wife and I'm out shooting whatever on my farm, and the neighbour, but he hears noises. All right. About this, I can understand the reasoning why if the owner of the helicopters wants to keep a good eye on them, security for his own interest. If it's a problem with that, helicopter comes and goes. Emergency helicopters. As it's been a difference. It gets away in time. Got to the airport, in the helicopter, make sure it's right, get it going, makes a big difference. So, for me, I think I wouldn't like it if it was in like a restaurant or something. Agree with it, but if you're going to park it in your own shed, I fully support.
Mr. Hamling.
Mr. Chair, just a quick question to the council staff. So is this going to be a temporary setup until the proponent builds something out at the airport? Is that what the gentleman said?
Mr. Chair, certainly actually it might have been listed back in the items of delegated approval. The applicant certainly has a separate application, which is his main base. This is like a secondary one that is minor use of the 7 permits per week.
Yeah, no worries. And the other question is with the when we were discussing the land out around the airport about industrial use, the contamination into our water catchment came up fairly regularly. Does a spill kit adequate for the amount of fuel that's going to be held there?
Certainly the applicant will be required, like anyone else, to comply with work cover requirements, so Safe Work New South Wales, and also EPA requirements. We've assessed that and are satisfied that it's appropriate for our water catchment area.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I just had a couple of questions. Look, I understand people saying, well, why does this need to be built? Why do helicopters need to be on into this property 2 kilometres from the airport? I understand that, but that's not really what we're deciding tonight. What we're deciding is, again, as we've already said, does the application comply with the planning legislation? And as far as I can see, and based on the staff report, I'd have to say it does. I would like to clarify in terms of the number of movements versus flights. There seems to be a slight discrepancy there. It talks about 7 movements per week. Take off is 1, landing is 2 in the director's comments, and then it talks about 7 flights per week. So is it 3.5 flights or is it 7 flights per week? Is it 1 per day? Is it? It talks about under the director's comments, if you read the papers, 7 movements per week, take off 1 is 1, landing is 2.
That's correct.
That's 3.5 flights.
Yes.
That's 3.5 flights, okay. All right. Very good. And I suppose my other question really has been dealt with by Councillor Hamling in terms of the risk in terms of spillage. But I wonder whether there's any more risk in a location like this, a private location, as opposed to out at the airport, which is also sitting on the water catchment. I don't know whether there is a greater risk in a private situation.
Equally, they would have to be bunded and stored as normal chemicals are.
As normal, so as the same. Yep.
McRae, who was in front? Where you go?
Ladies first.
Thank you, Councillor Mileto. Look, I've just got 2 comments. I'm support of the development application as it stands before us as a planning matter. And I note a number of the speakers and some of the submissions were concerned about alleged breaches prior to approval, but as far as I understand, that's not something on which we can make a planning decision. That's other enforcement, which I trust that is being followed through as indicated in the report. And secondly, the suggestion that the preferred location is at the airport. I wonder, is that a relevant consideration? I mean, we might have people and say, oh, well, you can't put in a swimming pool, or we don't want you to put in a swimming pool in your backyard because we've got a council-operated aquatic centre that we'd prefer you to use. But I assume that as it's a planning matter, we have to judge the DA that's before us, not an alternate location we might prefer them to use, and that would be, in this case, the same for the helipad. Thank you.
So Mileto.
Thank you. I just have 2 questions. And the first one is with regards to future subdivisions in that area. I know that we do have strategic plan, etc., moving forward. But can the directors indicate whether there's any proposal to move any subdivisions to that area in the future?
I've got it. Through Mr Chair, there are no current plans. You're in the water catchment, so our housing policies at the moment say no more housing in the water catchment. We are doing a local housing strategy, as you know. We'll look at all areas, but at the moment, no plans.
Thank you. And the second question that I have, and I don't know what's appropriate for Mr Chair to ask the applicant, I noticed that the noise was done on a Bell 206 and a 212. I'm just wondering whether the applicant has any plans to buy or any other helicopters which may be louder, which haven't been considered as far as the noise is concerned.
Part of the application, I think, Mr. Conjecture.
Okay, I'm just asking.
Very well, the next helicopter may be very much quieter. We don't know.
Okay. Thank you.
The 212 is a large helicopter.
I'll move the motion before.
It assesses it.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, we will put the motion. All those in favour of the motion? Those against? 1 against. The motion is carried. We move on to 2.5, development application 118.
Move, Mr Mayor.
Bloomfield Road. In other words, the cycle path has been moved. Councillor Hamling. Oh, okay, we've got to
move to Councillor Hamling, haven't you?
We have a seconder for the application. Yep. Councillor Kidd. Councillor Hamling.
I think this is fantastic news. But I just want to change those gates that the speaker was talking about, and maybe some line marking instead of the gates. Being a bit of an Iron Man myself, I think me riding a bike into that sort of area at that time of a race would.
Can you repeat that?
I'd probably crash straight over the top. So I think some line marking would be.
Who does an amendment?
All right with that.
I think it's conditions for a year.
Is required.
Yes, through you, Mr Chair. Yes, please. I think Councillor Hamling's referring to condition 4, which is just asking, you could do it one of 2 ways. You could either just say you want line marking, or you could say an alternative is that...
Council happy that
rather line marking.
Motion?
I'll second line marking.
I would like to ask for amendment number 4, if the council would consider, if possible, I'm assuming it's to keep vehicles not out there going through there. Is that no? Wondering whether bollards would be a different.
Through you, Mr Chair, what we're trying to do there is we're just aware of the potential conflict between fast riders and pedestrians or slow bikes. So consideration was given to all the options. One option came up from our staff in relation to the gates, and then we've looked at it at a meeting with Mr Martin from the Triathlon Club or Cycle Club and spoke about it. He highlighted the safety issue to me. That's why I put the option in there of saying line marking in particular areas like around the toilet block and also the main entries to the park was where we might negotiate that out with the club operationally.
Happy to withdraw that then. Thank you.
Councillor Nugent. I think you might have been up first.
Just by a smidgen. I'll try not to, Councillor. Look, I'm rising to speak against the recommendation. I voted against the plan of management change on this issue, and to be consistent, I think I do need to vote against the DA, but I do say somewhat reluctantly. I am, I'm not a triathlete, but I do enjoy.
Man.
Sorry.
Man.
Ironman. No, I'm not even I'm not an Ironman. I'm not a triathlete, but I do like to ride my push bike, and I ride around that area quite often on a Sunday morning, and it's a beautiful area. The reason why I vote against it is because I think there's an alternative, which is this Bloomfield Park area, the dog exercise area, which is just to the east of that area, which is currently used. It's a wider area, it's a bigger area as far as I can tell, and I could see that a 6 metre track around there would work very well. And it would also mean that Gosling Creek, which to me is its current form, is pretty much ideal, pretty much perfect, would stay unchanged. While we might say, well, a 3 metre track or 6 metre track versus a 3 metre track doesn't make much difference. 6 metres, I don't know, it's probably from the...
Just a point of order, Mr Chairman, we're looking at this development application, not alternative sites.
Well, I'm just explaining why I'm voting against it.
No, point of order. We are discussing this development application on that site, not alternate sites.
Right, well, then I'll talk about this site. So this site, as it currently stands, is pretty much perfect. The 3 metre track, there was a lot of submitters made comments about allowing for bike riders or kids to learn how to ride their push bikes. Now, the 3 metre track, as far as I can tell, and I've used it, and I've had my young daughters, when they were learning to ride, riding on that track, it's ideal for kids learning how to ride. And my concern is with the 6 metre track, encouraging a lot more use, encouraging riders who are riding very quickly, and that's the reason for those gates, is to, as a traffic calming measure, to slow them down, as Mr Hodges has said. I'm concerned about the conflicting needs or the conflicting use between people who are, out there to doing a training run, riding as quickly as they can, and maybe some families who are trying to, encourage their young children to ride. So I would prefer to see Gosling Creek remain as is and look at alternatives as to where this important and needed development might go. And I think there is an alternative.
Do you want to speak, Councillor Kidd?
Yeah.
Yes. Councillor Kidd.
Look, I support this totally. I think it's a good spot, very, very much needed. Why I support the line marking, I've travelled a fair bit up, but I'm not an Ironman. No, I'm not even half an Ironman. I'm not even half a marathon man, but I have ridden bikes in a number of places in Australia and overseas where you can by educating the people, they stay over to one side and the faster riders go the other side. For instance, in New York, in one of the most busiest cycleways, walkways, skating ways, all things you can do on this path, they've got rules. You stay over to the left, and if you're on a bike and you're travelling fast, they hit their bell to let people going past. And I asked the same question because I was a very slow bike rider, in fear of sort of getting taken up in the amount of people behind me, and they said no. And 2 days in a row I rode quite a distance. Everyone obeys the rules and it works perfectly. It's not saying that there wouldn't be no risk, but I think once people are using it, the common courtesy of particularly the riders and joggers and walkers and so forth will overcome any marking, and I support the line marking, and I support the development application totally.
Well, I see. Righto, because safety. Another reason, grass fire mitigation. It's fire break. Grass out there at the moment. Had it on my property. But this is a great initiative. It'll bring area.
Councillor Whitten.
Yeah, great idea. Wholeheartedly support it. Cycling is going to be a growth industry for this region, and especially Orange, and facilitating the ability for all people, all parties, no matter if they're young children or professional riders, to enjoy the beautiful scenery and our investment that the community have put into the Gosling Reservoir area is magnificent. I did, however, a few years ago, go down there and there was a couple of young blokes with those miniature Grand Prix racing bikes, like with little engines on them. Maybe there's an opportunity to do something there as well, as we widen the track, we could have a miniature Phillip Island, with these little Grand Prix bikes.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten. Any other speakers? I'll certainly will be supporting the motion, but I would like to take the opportunity, when we're talking about cycling, wish the young fellow that was injured very badly out at the Lake Canobolas cycle track and is in, I understand, an induced coma in Sydney Hospital. Speedy recovery, and fortunately these things happen from time to time, especially when you're 15-year-old and invincible and things like that. So we wish him all the very best. I'd just like to clarify that, as far as I'm concerned, the motion now is not to do with the gates, it's to do with appropriate line marking. Yep. Everyone understand? Okay, well, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? One against, so the motion is carried. Move on to 2.6, development application 1 Scarborough Street.
Moved.
Seconded.
Move, Councillor Kidd, was it?
Yep.
No, seconded. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Unanimous. Move on to 2.7.
Recommendation.
Seconded.
Confused? 2.7 is still Scarborough, a different number.
Yeah, different DA.
Okay, any discussion? No discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. That brings Planning and Development Committee to finalisation. I'll call on Councillor Whitten.
Always, mate, you're sitting on the wrong side. Thank you, Councillor Turner. I'll open the Traffic and Policy Committee at it's around about 9 minutes past 9. Then ask for any declarations of pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interest, and less than significant non-pecuniary interests. Councillor McRae.
Mr Chair, I have a less than significant non-pecuniary interest in the Traffic Committee item 2.1, so I'll depart for that item.
How about with the concurrence of our colleagues that we do 3.1 before you leave?
Sorry, it's 3.3 in the Traffic Committee items. Sorry, I got the numbering wrong.
That's not in the minutes. Current works, is it?
No, it's Orange Traffic Committee meeting.
So 2.1.
Recommendation 2 has a 3.3 for which I'm a business owner in that area of Anson Street.
No parking signs as per next year. Yeah.
Noted.
Noted.
We'll deal with 3.1 first. So I'll move on to item 3.1, current works.
Move.
Yeah. Moved by Councillor Hamling, seconded by Councillor Kidd. Your discussion on this item?
So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to move a motion, if possible, that Ploughman's Lane be brought forward. Road construction, I understand, with the last roads and footpath forum we had, that it's due to be redone about stage 8 or 9. I'd like to see it brought up the priority list a bit, because I think, as I stated before, it is a goat track. It's disgraceful when it rains. There's potholes in it everywhere, and it is very widely used. The connection from Cargo Road to Forbes Road. So I'd
Seconder, if I may. Sorry, Councillor Hamling. It's been seconded by Councillor Milletta. Carry on.
I just think we'll be waiting a bit of a long time for that one to be done. I don't know how we can do it. A report might have to come back, but I'd like to see it done sooner rather than later.
I'm going to refer to the CEO. He would like to comment.
Mr. Chair, if it's okay with Councillor Hamling, we will bring back a report on how that might be done with the pros and cons. Does that satisfy you?
No. It's just, look, the motion would be, if you wanted a motion, the report come back, lifting it up.
I just want, if we could have a report sooner.
All in favour, aye. I'll deal with it as a matter arising now and say...
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We've got a mover and a seconder. Second is happy for it to change to a report. Yep. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Now I'll go back to item 3.1. We've got a mover and a seconder. Is there any further discussion on this item?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just quickly on the water issue, we had two very popular... is this what we're dealing with, 3.1? Yes. Yeah, we had two very popular forums throughout the week, which were pretty well attended, and I'm sure that the public went away with some of the answers, some of the work that we are doing on our water, which is, we're in a bit of a bad time at the moment, but, council staff are working very hard to see us through this bad period. So I commend the council staff and for everyone putting it on, and I commend the public who turned up to get the answers instead of reading the hogwash that you read on social media.
Thank you, Councillor Hamling. Councillor Milletta.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I just want to what Councillor Hamling has said, and I'd also like to thank the council and the council staff for putting in those water forums, which kept our residents and ratepayers up to date with the latest information and also the direction moving forward. Certainly, I've received a significant amount of positive feedback from people who have appreciated the fact that council have put this on and gave them the opportunity to have their say and provide feedback to what the council was doing moving forward.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Milletta. Councillor
ask you a question, please. The rebates on water tanks, and they be the rebate.
I take that one on notice.
We're going to take that on notice, Councillor Munro.
And also, if you could, while you're doing it, just houses in Orange. Auxiliary. Don't have to take.
We'll find out. We may not have those stats. Who's got tanks?
Good on
We do?
DA approvals. Yes, you would.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we can bring back probably through a memo, number of connections to the dual water system. That would be the easiest way there. So it won't necessarily tell you how many tanks are out there, but we can talk about alternative water supplies, and we can certainly tell you what there's a sliding graduated scale ranging for rainwater tanks, starting at about $150 through to $500 for rainwater tanks, depending on their size, and also connections into the plumbing system.
I just would like to know that, because rainwater use would be.
Thank you, Councillor Munro. Councillor Nugent.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question about leaks, leak detection. Now, on the issue of water again, and it's great to see council doing everything possible, taking lots of different initiatives and being very lateral in our thinking in terms of how we can save water. But just on the leak detection program, 81 leaks on council network and a further 59 possible private leaks. That seems like a lot of leaks. But I suppose, and 77% of council leaks have been fixed. Does that mean the others are too hard to fix? And what level of saving are we making in relation to with water by addressing all of those?
Okay, we've got a couple of questions there. Let's find out how we find the leaks.
Yeah, we use acoustic hearing gear, or contractors do on our behalf. Through you, Mr. Chair. Why we haven't, there's a number we haven't repaired, but we're following behind the leak detecting contractors to be able to repair those, so we will catch up eventually. Some of the good things we're doing is identifying leaks internally for our own customers, which is really good, and we're sending them letters and advising them that they got a leak. They can then repair water bills and yeah, that's pretty much it. Was there another question there? Volume. Yeah, okay, so after the contractor's finished, our expectations are we'll be provided with a report that will outline savings in water. I can't tell you the number off the top of my head now, but there'll be a wrap-up at the end of the contract. I can provide that information.
Councillor Nugent. Councillor McRae.
A sort of related question, but is it normal that a council water system has leaks, and what sort of percentage is normal?
Aging.
Yep, you again.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. Okay, yes, it is normal. Nothing's watertight. Generally, best practice, you're looking at around about 10 to 15% of your water use would be leakage in your network. So we're at around about that number. So as far as best practice is concerned, we're right up there.
Thank you. Okay, I'd just like to make comment on, there was an article on Prime News last night about I believe it was the minister has been in Israel from New South Wales to look at the way that how the Israelis protect their water supply and are using treated effluent, as the Mayor said. And Orange got commented on. There's only 3 locations in Australia that actually use recycled water. We're doing stormwater harvesting. So congratulations to the staff and to so I see the comments today from the Mayor, and I wholeheartedly agree with him that Orange has been very conservative with our water for some 20 years, and our neighbours are starting to be or having to do the same, but are loosening up really quickly. Look, if I may, because it may have upset some councillors making a comment, but I think it is very, very important that the drought that we're having right across the state, the government, different agencies have made it quite clear there is money for infrastructure and improved infrastructure. Some councils perhaps haven't been as diligent as they should looking at their town water supplies, particularly for emergencies. Just to emphasise, emergencies, drought is only one of them. Have a situation where you get contamination of your actual dams or whatever, or pumps blow up, and part of what this council with the council has been doing is looking at our sustainable yields and how we get to that sustainable yield, and that's based on your population and your businesses. Also your growth into the future and ways of getting water in emergencies. Now, part of that is pipelines. Now, we've got some funding this year, 2 lots of funding this year. Of course, we could show that we're efficient and effective in our potable water use. That's the main reason. Down with the CEO, meetings with various ministers, and I tell you that some councils have got into trouble for flaunting it. I said at the forum, so I'll say it here again. We all have a responsibility when there's a drought, and I think part of what this council has done and done well is engaged with the community education on how important water is, how we can still have a really good lifestyle and have a garden, do all those sorts of things you want to do, and get down where we are at the moment. Certainly, I know most people would like to be going out there watering their lawns, but this time it's not a good idea to water your lawns because we just haven't got that water. And we're sitting around that 145 to 50, which is absolutely incredible. When I read that article in the paper, Dubbo looking at supposed to get down towards 290, and then they made the decision lift the restrictions and go back to, and it'll go back to 340, and you can water your lawn at any time. It's virtually no restrictions whatsoever. Now that's over double, 3 times potable water we're using in Orange. It is hotter there, that is for sure, and there would be used more evaporative coolers and like that. I appreciate that, but it's an extraordinary amount. It's not close, it's just an extraordinary amount. And when we had the Sydney Morning Herald up here a couple of weeks ago, I was ringing up and complaining like hell. In fact, I got in a tiff with a journalist when it said Orange was near ground zero. Put us in there with Dubbo and Tamworth, and can't think about the other ones. And I asked the journalist what was the potable water use in Sydney, and she couldn't tell me. I said, well, that's 140. I think Sydney's about 340. If you want to discuss it, get back to me tomorrow. And she did. The next day, and she said, oh. So they came out the following week and spent 2 or 3 days here over Cowra, Dubbo, I think, and then I think it is really important, and what Councillor Whitten just said, that what this council has been doing is highlighted not only across the state but nationally. Guy been on ABC Breakfast, which goes all over Australia on, and people are picking up and asking staff here and asking councillors, wow, that's good, you're doing something positive. I have not. I know you'll get it, I'll get a telling anyhow on social media or whatever it may be. In reality, walk down the street and go around, people think we're doing a good job and we're doing the right thing. I haven't had anyone grab me by the throat and say, Amelia's dead, car's dirty. So I think it's hard decisions to make, but we've made very, very good hard decisions going back dead. And that support that we're giving to our staff who are driving it, very, very important, because sometimes those decisions are not all that easy to make for half, because so the staff have terrific pace, and it is hard work, and we're not there yet. I think in the council's time and the council after that, automatically, and I did make a comment today and I'll make it here. The next step is use of treasure effluent, no doubt, in this country. Went through the same thing with potable, with stormwater harvesting. A lot of the population of Orange said, oh God, what about the dog poo and the cigarette butts and all the rubbish, and oh yucky, it'll never work. If you went around Orange now and asked them, we'll get rid of it, stormwater harvesting, say no. There are objectors to the first wetland that was put in up there, Wentworth Lane. Now the people own that wetland, and in fact a lot of the objectors say they own it now and have been looking after it. You've got to make hard decisions sometimes if you progress.
British have been drinking effluent for years and it hasn't hurt them. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to also thank the staff on the great work they're doing up with that new bridge that we've got over near the up off Edward Street. Looks magnificent. One question the gentleman asked me tonight as I was walking in, and I couldn't answer that question, is how is it going to join, as it comes over and comes down towards the new South Forest Road, how does the old part of Huntley Road join on? Does it? Is it a roundabout or is it a two-way sign?
It's just a normal T intersection, so Huntley Road will actually just be slightly diverted, so it comes into the southern feeder road at 90 degrees.
Thank you very much. I hope he's watching tonight. He probably is, and that got the answer. I think we all learned something from that. All right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. And we'll go back to item 2.1, and Councillor McRae is going to leave the room before we do that. See how long we can leave you out there for. Okay, item 2.1, minutes of the companion animals. No, that's wrong, isn't it? I'm on the wrong page.
Traffic Committee.
I'm in the wrong committee. 2.1 is the Traffic Committee minutes. By Councillor Kidd, seconded by Councillor Hamling. Your discussion on
Just a question
Traffic
rising,
Committee.
if I may. It's not exactly on that, but Councillor Taylor's brought up a couple of times. I agree with him totally about line marking. Can we staff come back to us and let us know which will cause a big time delay in some of these areas. It is hard to see the lines, and I know a lot of people have been booked because they couldn't see the line, and in fact I've noticed myself in a few places very, very difficult to see, and if you had poor eyesight you'd have no chance.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, line marking doesn't cost that much. It's typically around $1 or $2 per lineal metre, depending on the line type. The difficulty is actually getting a line marker. They're as rare as hen's teeth.
Right.
Further, Mr. Chair, in relation to the line marking, particularly around the disabled spots, it is an issue that's been raised by the council a number of times.
Yeah.
We have committed funds to that. We're just waiting for the weather to get a little bit hotter, because when you do those, particularly the disabled spots, they got a lot of paint on them. So it's happening later in the year, but it's certainly been committed. So it's about $20,000 or $30,000 there for extra marking around town for sites like that. So
it's a supplementary question, if I may. In saying that line mark, do we own one? I'm not talking about along the road, the ones you drive along, the big long ones. Have we got our own marker where you can paint the line?
We do have a little trolley one.
Yeah. Need one? Yeah.
Mr. Mick, can I just ask a quick question about line marking? Does that include the cycleways and all that sort of thing, that extra money? 30,000, whatever you said? Because I think they need a bit of a spruce up.
through you, Mr. Mayor, because, the CEO saying yes, we're going to stick with that. I was going to say the bits I've certainly committed to have been because the car parking's under our section.
CEO spoke.
You've just been allocated more funding, Mr. Director. You didn't know you had. Good.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering whether the council staff could bring back the statistics as of January 1st, people who have been booked whilst overhanging, while their vehicles have been overhanging footpaths. The reason I ask is because I've received three complaints this week, and I know it's not my job to answer those inquiries, but my concern is that some of the places where these people have been booked, there is no footpath there. It's just a nature strip. So it's where a vehicle may have the tail or the hanging over past their mailbox, yet it's not impeding traffic and there is no footpath there, yet we're asking people to maintain those verges, I guess, or those nature strips. But, I mean, these are residential areas where I wouldn't be expecting parking people to be frequenting. And I'm talking about, I won't say where it was because I don't want to identify one of the people, but certainly the area which I went and had a look at. I'm curious to know why we're looking at residential areas where there's no schools or anything like that and not a great deal of foot traffic.
And are you saying that they were parked in their driveway and had their back parked just out onto the...
That was the information which I've been provided. Whether it's accurate or not, I can't say. But if that is true, I'm just curious to know why that is and, what level of discretion is used under those circumstances. But I'm curious to know. I've had 3 phone calls this week about people saying that they've been booked, and my understanding is although the council don't set the fines, but we're talking about around the $600 mark for somebody who isn't deliberately doing something when there is no footpath there. It's just a nature strip.
What we might do is ask you to relay to the CEO or to the director those locations so they can investigate it.
Happy to do so.
Fair comment, Mr. CEO?
Correct.
You happy with that, Councillor?
Yeah, happy to do so.
Chairman,
Councillor Romano.
I'm just going to go back to where mayor parking at the Civic Centre. I think that's great. I also think that there probably should be some parking for councillors. I know that some councillors don't believe in it, but I'll tell you tonight, I was late. Later, when I tried to find a spot, car park, I couldn't see how packed it was. So, I agree the mayor should have a spot, and I think maybe 3 or 4 others should be located for councillors, or maybe 12. There's 12 councillors. We can look at that, consider it.
We'll take that on notice and ask the CEO to comment on
It's
that
just
back
getting
to council.
I just think it's just getting. Well, we come in here to serve a duty, right? We come in here. We're elected community, but it is difficult sometimes to park. As the mayor's, he's in here all the time as well, and agreed he needs an allocation for his car, and I think that the councillors should be allocated spots. If you go to a lot of businesses in town, there's always spots there for general managers and employees and staff. I don't think that we're going to be looked at. Well, I'll speak for myself, but it's not being selfish. I just think that, we come in here to perform a duty, and I think it's only fair that we have allocated car spots.
The CEO would like to comment on that.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Would the Deputy Mayor consider the previous proposal that was knocked back in chamber, that councillors would be issued with a permit of sorts to put on your dash here on council business, as opposed to dedicated spots?
I'm not referring. I understand what you're saying, but I'm actually saying we can't get a spot. I could not find
council meeting night.
But your
permit. Council meeting nights, or whether it's during the week, if we're called in to represent somebody or to do something, and we most of us do work other than being councillors. We do work. I think we've tried the system of finding the spot, then we're getting booked. I've been booked when we're performing a council duty. So I'd like councillors to consider not to look at it as like we're above the community. I wouldn't be looking at it that way. Otherwise, the mayor wouldn't be asking for a dedicated spot for his car.
Sorry, Councillor Romano, I did not ask for a dedicated spot.
Come up. Okay, I'll clarify that. I agree with it. I'm not disagreeing with it. It's a matter of having it's somewhere to park your vehicle, and know that you've got a parking spot when you get here. I'm finding it more and more difficult to find a spot. It's not about putting a notice on your dash. It's actually finding somewhere to park. So maybe we can consider looking at it again.
All right, we'll get the CEO to bring some information back for the councillors to debate and consider whether they move forward or not.
What we're doing.
So today, we're at a forum. Bringing up to get down there, I hope they haven't booked me. But yeah, sometimes things do run over time. Yeah, you are. I do agree with that. I think if anything, something that I do, because those instances to be booked.
That's not what I'm saying.
That's what I think.
It's not about a ticket on the dash. I don't think that's
Something, I don't know.
plausible.
You've got an allocated spot.
Okay.
Council at parking.
Alrighty, we'll move on. Any further questions to do with the minutes of the committee, of the traffic committee? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Close the meeting at 9:30. Hamling, step up for his committee.
I'll declare the Sport and Recreation Policy Committee meeting opened at 9:30. I'll move on to general reports. Item 2.1, BMX track, Anzac Park.
Recommendation, Mr Chair.
By Councillor Nugent, seconded by Councillor Pravatera. Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Supporting the motion, regrettably, because we all we were confident that it was going to be highly successful. I know Councillor Taylor pushed it and pushed it and pushed it for many years. And,
He was against it, Mr. Councillor.
I don't think Councillor Taylor pushed it.
You find Councillor Taylor and I were very, very much against it.
That's right, okay. I was trying to compliment him. Well, we supported it in the first place, and then
He's not here.
what we have now is obviously stage 2, like an updated version of. As I go through there 2 or 3 times a day, sometimes see people using the leash-free area. Now and again, it's not overcrowded for certain. And then the little skate park, yes, it's used from time to time, but the BMX track is virtually has never been used. A lot of people have tried it out. I had on one occasion, stage 1 many years ago, a parent complained to me that there was a little click up there and there was a certain group of young blokes who decided that it was their BMX track, and a few fights when anyone else tried to use it, but that's beside the point. My main concern now is that it is just an ugly eyesore. No one's using it, it's falling into disrepair, it's got weeds all over it. The track is rutted out from rain last year sometime, it hasn't been rutted out this year. So it is not fair to the people in the subdivision above. It's an ugly eyesore for all these people that come into town to use the facilities at Anzac Park. Like the last few days, the car parks have been absolutely full, and I understand there's hockey tournaments, is that correct at the moment? So quite often there is a lot of out-of-town visitors visiting Anzac Park, and this is just an eyesore, it's not being used. I certainly support the motion which says that the lower cost option, that we just level it out, put some seed on top and wait for the rain, and it'll then be used by people walking on their bikes or whatever, but it'll certainly be more attractive than what we've got there at the moment. Great plan. I thought it was going to be successful. We came up with all these 100 bikes that we're going to use it. We're going to have tournaments and bring people in from out of town and all sorts of things. It hasn't happened. It's something that hasn't been successful. Let's acknowledge it, level it off, and to return it back to what it used to be.
Thanks, Councillor Turner. Councillor Romano.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just on the financial implications to do with the BMX, can I just get an explanation on the $10,000 additional dollars? I don't understand what that means. Why is there an additional $10,000 for capital works? I thought this was already budgeted for.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the $10,000 represents the excavator's work required to level the site and to spray seed following those works. Current project of council is not in the budget. That's the additional cost.
Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wondering whether, having met with some people from Cadia Mines here earlier tonight, whether there's any opportunity for council to engage with, people like Cadia Mines to form a community partnership to support where could engage someone like Cadia Mines to come in and do the work as a community partnership, and the money which we would save, which would be the $10,000, whether that money then could be used in a different area to support a youth-based educational program or something like that. Is it possible to make a representation to Cadia Mines to find out whether they'd be interested to do it, as a job in kind, and that money which we would then save then could be put into a youth-based education program?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we can certainly ask them. There's different. The only difficulty with that is that $10,000 was applied to a youth program. It'd be expensive. It'd have a negative impact on the general fund as opposed to capital works. So our bottom line would be impacted by that amount in the general fund.
Could you use the 10,000 on capital works, maybe footpaths or something of some significance? I'm just wondering whether there's other opportunities that we could support, which we could have a community partnership, because I know that there are, whether it's CADIA or there are a number of other organisations may relish the opportunity to be part of the community.
I agree. We can certainly ask CADIA.
Thank you.
And then it'll be before council if they choose to allocate the $10,000 towards another project.
The question I've got, I'm a bit confused now, because when I read through another thing, that was $10,000 allocated for the master plan of AN Park.
That's correct, Mr.
So it's $10,000 to update the master plan and $10,000 to level this out. Well, look, can I just say, if it's $10,000, what in the hell are we doing spending $10,000 for amended master plan? We've got a master plan for there. All it's saying is that the BMX track's going, and later on down the track somewhere, well, if there's a need for a footy field or a soccer field or more parking or whatever it may be, I just find that extraordinary that we're spending $10,000 on amending a master plan, which I reckon I could sit here and do in half an hour. Just talking.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the $10,000, as I recall, was a resolution of council in the last budget cycle to update the master plan for Anzac Park. I may be incorrect, but I understand that's a project of council.
Well, first of all, can we just check that? And then secondly, just sort of revise that. Look, I'll express a concern that on two things. One, that we do have a master plan, and quite often we get someone else to do the master planning. We don't do it ourselves. We get someone else to do it, and it costs us a fair bit of dough. When we're amending a master plan, unless it's a complete and utter overhaul and something's completely different, we're moving off a site and onto another site, I can understand it. But when it's a slight modification, I can't see why we'd spend $10,000, and I agree. I can see better use of that, a shelter at a sports ground or footpaths or whatever it may be. There's another one that I'll bring up again later on. We spent quite a bit of money a number of years ago on doing a flying fox abatement plan, management plan, if you like. Well, I read that we've just spent money doing another flying fox management or abatement plan. The flying foxes are still the same. Flying foxes are still going to the same areas. Can't understand why we're paying someone to do a flying fox abatement plan, management plan. So I just think sometimes we need to look at some of those things and think, is the cost of it justified in the reality of what it's doing?
Councillor McRae.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, in regards item 2 here in the recommendations, I disagree with Councillor Miletto that we should seek external support for funding. I would imagine that if an external party like CADIA wants to contribute to our community, they probably want to build something rather than demolish. We have made a resolution to demolish the BMX track. We've now got to suck it up and actually do the work, and it's going to cost us $10,000 to flatten the site. That's what this resolution is about. I'm not sure why flying foxes are in there as well, but look, as far as I can see, this is a fairly clear recommendation to note the amended master plan and then agree that we're going to do the work to demolish the BMX track, as has already been determined that that's what we wanted to do.
Councillor Munro.
Look, I'd suggest that, look, possible, but grand's a lot of money just to flatten that out. D5, not even a day to do that. I think we should phone calls and see what we can get as far as a couple of D5s to, or a, I know what they charge. I've had dams built. If we put it out to tender, operators, I think we'd get.
Yeah, CEO, I'd like to comment.
Agree with that, Mr. Chair. It does say the cost for this would be approximately $10,000. Of course, we'll be following our procedures to get proper quotes and things.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there's about 7,500, so 7,500 cubic metres of material on that site. So that equals 15,000 tonne, more or less. That equals 150,000 dump truck loads of soil that's being moved. That's the
Just flatten it out. We're flattening it out. We're not taking it away.
100 rather.
1,500 dump
So
trucks.
the estimate on the work has been provided internally by our works engineers. The estimate's about a week's worth of work to do it properly, because the last thing we want to do is a poor job on the site. It's an estimate, it's an internal cost, and then there's the cost of the seeding to bind the site. So that's the basis for the costs.
Council facility as well, so we want to do it properly. Talking about a dam.
That's not a bad
Council
idea,
Wynne.
Mr. Chairman. Would have been cheaper than a BMX track.
Yeah.
Yeah, the BMX track probably cost us, I estimate, I can remember giving 50 grand to it, and I think we even gave another 50 grand.
No, we
to it,
did.
but I could be wrong. So this thing's going to cost us about 110 grand or 20 grand, but unfortunately you can't. Like my dad used to say, no regrets, even though I voted against it all the way. Yeah, let's knock it over. Estimate 10 grand. Let's get it done. Make it safe. Yeah, to get somebody like Newcrest to do it, they'd probably rather give you the money than float gear in here. There'd be insurance issues. There'd be all sorts of stuff, right? They're not going to float gear into town to over some dirt because there's too many ifs and buts. So let's just get it done. Knock her over.
Yeah, it's a shame because I know, Orange's priding itself on being a biking mecca, that we have to knock this BMX track over. We did have a lot of promises of usage and funding grants that were going to come from all different sources, but it didn't come to. I'm excited about having some spare space, maybe extending Anzac Park, like netball's exploded, futsal's going off, indoor hockey. So we do need another court on Anzac Park at some stage. And when we built that, we left that space down the end there for another court, which could provide more parking up on the BMX track. So there's plenty of uses that we can do with it. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. I'll just bring up a couple of things from the chair. We had a very successful indoor hockey tournament with 700 participants on the weekend. The mayor was up there over the weekend. So, that's those things that are coming to town that not many people hear about, but it's got big bang for the buck with businesses and motels and all things like that. I've just got a question that I'd like to ask from the chair to someone about the sporting precinct money and where we're up to with that $25 million pledge that the Premier gave, backed off and then gave again.
I need to answer that, Mr. So through you, Mr. Chair, the state has made a commitment through where they've allocated the money, as I understand the verbiage, to be nominally through the Growing Local Economies Fund. Council is yet to receive formal letters formal letter as to the process to access that funding. I understand through a number of discussions that we will be required to submit a business plan as you would for a normal grant application. And on that being considered by the government, then the funding would be approved as opposed to allocated. So we're waiting on that advice, but we're progressing on work in anticipation that that's what will be required.
Well, Mr. From the chair, I'd
the next time that maybe the mayor's down in Sydney, that he might be able to organise a chat with the Premier and just see how we can get that letter to us.
Well, I'd like to formally move that actually we do write appointment to see the Premier, so we've got something in writing, not a promise, so we can forward. It's very hard for the staff to move forward where get run around in a circle, and I'm only too happy to do that if I can get a seconder.
Seconded. Yep. All those in any speakers? No. All those in favour say aye. Against carried. I'll finish the meeting at 10 to 10 and call on Councillor Prevoteri to do the Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee.
I'd like to open the Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee, 7th November, time being 10 to 10. Does any councillor have a pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interest, or less than significant pecuniary interest in any matter listed for consideration at the meeting? Item 2.1, minutes of the Companion Animal Committee.
Recommendations.
All in favour?
Aye.
3.1, Cities Power Partnership and Energy Matters.
Recommendation. Seconded.
Discussions on the matter? I have a question for our directors or CEO. Lighting upgrade to LEDs. Have we got a start date on that yet?
Mr. Chair, I'll ask Mr. Theakstone, what was our last missive from Essential? February?
Yeah, they're planning on starting after Christmas, and it should take 20 weeks, they said.
15 to 20 weeks, that's right. Correct. I believe also that, Mr. Chair, any lights that break at the moment across the network to replace them with LEDs rather than the old ones. Things are on the move. Very confident.
Can I ask a question of you, Mr. Chairman, because you're the electricity whiz and Councillor Romano. Out on the Northern Distributor, I think it's at the Isley Road roundabout. About every second day, one of there's 4 lights. You know, it goes up and about 4. One's always on. They all be on the same thing and go off, you know, when sunrise in the morning. Might be afraid. I'll just check. It's one of the 2. I'll check in the morning, but light's on. It's 1 out of the 4.
Only one working.
Night time, they're all working.
Light?
But during the day, I don't know exactly what one is not working. I'll drive out there in the morning and have a look. So is there some reason for that? Is there?
Each light is controlled by a photosensitive cell. Sometimes they don't all work at the same time. Sometimes one's more sensitive to light than the other. So yeah, but it's usually within a half an hour.
They're not
if it takes longer than
synchronised.
that, the cell is faulty and needs replacing.
You organised to have them synchronised, Mr. Chairman.
I'll try. Also, I've got a question about the electricity procurement. Firstly, what percentage of power we end up getting as green power?
Mr. Chair, as you know, I formally reported to Council that the consultant and the Centroc, now the JO, were very confident that a package could be procured for the next 3 years electricity that would include a 20% renewable component, which Council voted and agreed on, if it was financially advantageous. I'm sad to say it wasn't financially advantageous, and we've now signed a 3-year contract that does not include any extra renewables. Remembering, of course, though, that the grid itself gives you 15 to 18% renewables. So effectively, this council is now buying electricity with 15 to 18% renewables off the grid. On a positive note, the price that the JO got through that consultant was pretty extraordinary. And I'll be reporting to you in a month, in December, as we wrap up the year on those savings and ask you to consider what we might do with them, together with the savings of the Southern Lights project, which are up to $500,000 a year. So good news. Can I also point out, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, on the LED issue, and particularly with the press in the room, that Emmaville Cottage has been lit up by our wonderful electricians. And should anyone drive past, you'll see tonight that that project's now one of the many lighting projects we're doing around. Now,
No more discussions. I'll put the motion.
Light bulb moment.
All for.
Ask questions, please. And we might be purchasing
Sorry, Mr. Chair. We currently don't have one on order. What we're going to do is tell staff who have lease cars that there would be an option for them to have a leased hybrid or electric vehicle, should they wish, if it fits within the money guidelines of those leases.
the reason I say that is,
EO's getting a Tesla.
yeah, when you look at the cost comparison between a normal little car to one of those, they're about
Electric ones.
Not 3 times, Mr.
Through you,
Well,
Mr. Chair.
we-
No, the Kona we bought was very reasonable.
46,000.
46,000, but the Santa Fe we had replaced was a similar price.
Yeah, so, you know,
Be frugal.
Thanks for all councillors. That concludes the Environmental Sustainability Committee. Time being 5 to 10. Pass on to Councillor McRae for the Finance Policy Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Prevotera. I'd like to open the Finance Policy Committee meeting of the 7th of November 2019 with the time being 9:56 p.m. Does any councillor have a pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interest or less than significant non-pecuniary interest in any matter listed for consideration at this meeting? There being none, I will move on to item 2.1.
Move the recommendation. Second that.
Moved by Councillor Kidd, seconded by Councillor Whitten. This, of course, is the fantastically exciting minutes of the Audit and Risk Management Committee meeting from August. Any discussion?
Only
Councillor
that,
Whitten.
Madam Chair, during the meeting, I note that yourself and the Mayor and certainly the Chairman of the meeting pointed out the fabulous and a lot of work that Shepherd did of the reports. And I just wanted to make mention of that in front of the Chamber. Maybe we could thank him for the great work he's been doing in that committee.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten. Any other discussion? That I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried? Oh, was that, we're good? Yep. Thank you, councillors. That concludes the Finance Policy Committee meeting with the time being 9:58 p.m. I call on Councillor Munro to conduct the Services Policy Committee.
in the Services Policy Committee meeting, 1st of October at, 3 minutes to 10?
Over.
November, I think.
Sorry. Declarations of any interest? Councillor, have any declarations of significant or non-significant? Nope. Good. Committee minutes, Lucknow Community Committee
Move the
meeting.
minutes. Move the minutes.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just a question, Mr Chairman, on within the recommendation 2, 25,000 be allocated for curb and guttering, and at recommendation 4 that 18,430 be allocated for curb and guttering. Are there actually two items, two different projects? Or?
Through you, Mr Chair, as a technicality, the committee in of itself recommended that $25,000 be allocated to curb and guttering. And so that resolution recommends that we note that recommendation. And the reason for that is that $7,000 or thereabouts has already been spent of the $25,000. So there's only $18,000 remaining. I did go further in that second dot point in that that the curb and guttering allocation is subject to review by the Technical Services Department and also liaison with the business and property owners. That was a reflection of the discussion at the committee meeting, and that the people that were in attendance, whilst they were in attendance, did not own those properties or lease them, and that in my recommendation and staff comment on that matter, that I thought that we should consult with those before we allocated the money. So that's the rationale to the amendment that's before council in that resolution.
You're going to discuss with the property owners or the business owners where the curb and guttering may go.
Correct. Because you've
got a fight on your hands, haven't you?
Has it gone councillor turn? You can't get your road tarred, mate.
Had some direct commentary from business owners in the past that they don't wish for curb and guttering to be installed in the front of their businesses. So that I thought it was probably best that we have that conversation with them before we just proceeded. So that was the rationale for that comment.
Good to see
Chair,
you.
just three quickies, if I may. First of all, are we any closer to getting a result as far as our insurance on the School of Arts Hall?
I don't take that on notice, Mr Chair.
That's
Ms.
the
Freeman's
fire
not
in the man
Who
shed.
does insurance?
The second one, the schoolhouse, which is listed, is that in our planning for the next 12 months or 2 years or whatever for maintenance? It needs some serious maintenance works done on as far as painting is concerned and maintaining where it's starting to paint that flake off. Is that in our sort of maintenance round?
Through you, Mr Chair, we did a bit of work out there last year or the year before.
That was last year.
Yeah.
After you, Mr.
And there was an undertaking back then to do some further painting, so I can check that up.
Can I just get something back on that or come and see me? I'd like to go out and have a look because there's some serious issues if we don't do something fairly quick. And where are we at with Barker's Cottage? Just refresh my mind.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't recall a present action for Barker's Cottage.
Mr Chair, I can comment that we've had 2 people probably in the last 3 years ask about it with a view to purchase, maybe no action.
Barker's Cottage is the one sort of opposite the pub and over a little bit. It's got a high fence on it. We actually own that cottage. So we've had a little bit of interest.
A little bit of interest, and we've been offering an incentive. Look, if you keep the cottage, fix it up, you might be able to put a couple of units out the back. But no real bites.
No
yet.
bites. Okay, thanks.
Okay, no more discussion. Let's put the motion. All in favour? Yes. All hands? Yeah. Against? No. Right. Okay, minutes of the Orange
Move the minutes.
Liaison Committee.
Excuse me.
Any discussion here?
Yes, Mr Chair, just a question about the resilience project presentation. I take it from the notes, the minutes and the agenda that's a project aimed at young people, helping to increase their resilience, and that it's run by the Western New South Wales or National Rugby League. Is that the case?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the National Rugby League has an independent resilience program for their players. This program is actually run by a company out of Melbourne that delivers a resilience project. So that's what this resolution relates to.
And can you tell us a little bit more about how it works, or who the target is for it?
Sure. So the proposal that came to council was to partner with an individual. His name's Wayne Hill. He's been promoting it. He happens to work for NRL, but he's promoting this individually. Essentially, and I had a conversation with Wayne today about this. They would come on a Friday. They'd deliver a number of these projects to school groups. And what they also like to do is make it available to the broader community as well. I know Orange Aboriginal Medical Service is part funding the cost for their visit, and that the high school that's targeted that has agreed through their principal Chad Bliss is Orange High. The two presentations referred to in the recommendation are public forums in the Civic Theatre. And the reason, and that if Orange City Council hosts those events, so it's an Orange City Council event, then the cost for the theatre is zero, so that we can promote that program for the benefit of the community.
And so are the presentations in 2021, not until?
That's correct.
Oh, so not next. So any reason why they're that far?
The demand for that organisation to deliver it, they're booked out. They could get here. They indicated that they might be able to get here in November, October next year. The preference is to do it at the start of the school year, particularly with Orange High or any school. And they're also targeting another number of primary schools as well. So Wayne's still working on it. Ideally, we'd do it earlier, but that's the first available date.
It sounds like a great program. Sounds very popular. Look forward to it coming to Orange.
Any other discussion? No?
Yes. 3.2, council provide $10,000 from the lead budget contribute 5 Get Active program in Orange. Information, is that going to a local provider or somebody out of town?
So council resolved in its budget to provide $30,000 for health initiatives, and so the Let's Renew the first event is tomorrow night in the Civic Precinct, where we have about 30 providers, different sporting and hobby groups and service providers in the Civic Precinct. And so that's really communicating to the community what's already here, and making the community, because some people are unaware, we have new arrivals all the time. So we have a cost associated with that. The proposal that went to the committee was to support this project, which is a national. It's a charity that operates out of Sydney. It's run by Jane Fleming. You'll remember, or you may remember Jane Fleming as the Olympic athlete. They've been delivering this across New South Wales now for a number of years with really good metrics. The value of so essentially they deliver 40 weeks worth of activity, and they target people that have abandoned gyms or abandoned exercise or disengaged for one reason or another. They use local providers, local accredited fitness instructors to provide those training sessions. They do 4 a week for 40 weeks. The value of it is about $80,000 if you cost it out. They are supported by corporates and Anthropy in Sydney, and so the cost to the community is around $20,000. So the committee decided to allocate $10,000 of its available budget to that project, and seeking the other $10,000 from the community or other groups to meet the cost of the $20,000.
Could I just say, Mr. Chair, can I encourage all councillors to see if they can get down there for a short period of time? It's at 4, I think. It's
4 till 9. Yeah.
4 o'clock to 9 down in the South Court, because there is a number of organisations that are giving up their time. And Aboriginal Health, we've got the Health Department, we've got all sorts of clubs in Orange and so forth. So if we get even drop in for 5 or 10 minutes or half an hour or whatever, so that's 4 o'clock in the South Court.
Hey, show of hands. Put the motion, please. All 4, yes? Unanimous? Hey, minutes of the NAIDOC week committee.
Move the motion.
Second.
Discussion here.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to acknowledge the work of the NAIDOC Week committee. NAIDOC Week in Orange has just wrapped up again for another year. It takes pretty much the whole year to, the committee starts meeting in January, February, and it takes the whole year to plan out the events. It's a really packed program with a lot of high quality events. I was fortunate enough to attend a number of them, including the awards night with Councillor Miletto, Councillor McRae and Maunder on last Friday night. Thank you, Friday night. And so a tremendous amount of work goes into it. It's a really important part of what we do here in Orange, celebrating our first Australians and their culture. And I would like to acknowledge the work of that committee. It's different from other community committees in the sense that, it starts and finishes each year, and then it sort of starts again with almost like a new committee each year. So I don't know whether it's appropriate to move a motion of thanks to Gerald Power as the committee chair and all of the community members on that committee for the tremendous work that they do in pulling that event.
I don't think we need a motion. I think it's unanimously supported. I think fine to do that.
Pass it on. Thank you.
Other discussion? Thank you. Another. No, you got to put. Oh yeah, better put the motion. Put that one. It's actually from the 3rd of October. So yeah, put the motion. All in favour? So, 17th of October, NAIDOC committee meeting.
Moved. Second.
Hey, is there any discussion here? Same sort of put the motion if no one's going to. Thank you. Unanimous. All good. Discussion. I'd like to close the meeting at 12 minutes past the hour of 10. And hand it over to, who hand it over to now?
The Mayor.
Mr. Kidd.
Yeah.
First item we have under 4 notices of motion, 4.1, notice of motion, traffic control methods, Turner Crescent.
Speak to your motion.
Oh, sorry, mate. Yeah, I was exposed. Yes, I would like to speak to the motion.
I'll second it for discussion, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks,
Councillor.
What's the motion?
It's item 4, 4.1.
4.1.
I don't need the thing. What I need, or what I'd like to see the council do, is mitigate some traffic problems. Important. We had a robust debate. I agree with the developers. Speak to Mount Crescent and around. They didn't have objection to the development. With the upset of the people in that. I'd love to think on asking for a study, but seeing what have a real good look at all aspects so that we can actually play any fear. The childcare centre, safety, which is across the road, up and down traffic movement. We have to put paths in either side of the road if we have to slightly widen it, I don't know. But we need to know what we can do to back on count. Dogleg is very, road there is problematic, very problematic. We solve this motion. I look forward to able to have structure put in the buildings. I'd like to think forward to mitigate.
Thanks, Councillor Munro. I want a bit of clarification before I make a decision. I'm just a bit confused what the councillor is asking for in addition to the local traffic management improvement plan as per item 4.1, which was brought to council on the 22nd of October 2019. And I refer to the local traffic improvements, which are required and have been included as conditions of consent. That was on the 22nd of October. I'm just wondering, they clearly state line markings for Mastronardi Way. Number 2, a raised traffic island, road servicing and line marking for the corner of Turner Crescent, entry to the childcare centre, to reduce speed of vehicles entering the site and to regulate traffic flows. Number 3, amendments to car parking dimensions, aisles, width, burning bay to suit users class under whatever that is, whatever 3.A, to address high turnover of car parks, manoeuvring and minimise bottlenecks at peak drop-off and pick-up times. And the last one, number 4, a concrete footpath to be constructed for the full frontage of the development to Turner Crescent to cater for pedestrian traffic. I guess the only thing which I'm not quite sure what the councillor is asking for in addition to what has previously been highlighted at a previous meeting. The other thing which I would probably speak about is there may be a consideration for additional signage with regards to perhaps no parking on the immediate corner on either side of the entrance to the facility.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'll speak in favour of the motion. I think it's a sound approach, it's proactive, and it does show the residents of Turner Crescent that we are addressing their issues of concern. So I commend Councillor Munro on the motion. I'm not sure we can allay all their fears about traffic and pedestrians and parking and line marking, but it does show concern and a responsible approach. In terms of Councillor Miletto's assertion that it was addressed in the DA, I think this is an opportunity to look beyond just what the DA stipulated and see what else council has under its control, which may be related to other nearby areas, or even things that now we know that DA is going ahead that we can anticipate based on traffic flow and impacts on the neighbourhood. And as it says, it's in close proximity to the approved childcare building. I think it's sound approach to actually put it as a motion to the meeting rather than bringing it up as a matter arising or other ways. And I commend Councillor Munro and I support this motion.
Whitten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, I'll be supporting it, but I would recommend that we send it to the Traffic Committee and they can look at the actual motion itself in conjunction with Councillor Miletto's already been put in place with the DA.
Councillor Turner.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Probably surprisingly, I won't be supporting the motion. I think Councillor Miletto has highlighted many of the issues that have already been raised by the council staff. They've raised those concerns, such as the footpath and the traffic island on the bend, etc., etc. I would, and as far as like a lot of the people that talked about all these children that risk being run over, I doubt that there will be more than maybe one parent and child that's going to walk a reasonably close distance. I believe 99.9% of the children that are going to arrive will be arriving by car. They will drive into the childcare centre, drop the little darling off, and the parents will drive out. I can't see why any parent would park in Turner Crescent and walk when they can park in a designated car parking area within the childcare centre itself. I would prefer to let's get the childcare centre built, see what happens as far as all the traffic concerns. I'm sure most of them, the vast majority of the traffic concerns or perceived traffic concerns will not eventuate. I would prefer to maybe come back in 12 months' time and have a review in 12 months' time. Ask for comments in 12 months' time after it has all settled down and we see most of the concerns or the vast majority of the concerns that have been raised are unfounded. I don't know. I can't speak for the Traffic Committee, even though I'm chairman, but I would understand that we should, in 6 months or 12 months' time, review or listen to any concerns that have been raised after the childcare centre's opened and had time to settle
Moving
down.
that way, Councillor Turner.
Councillor.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I agree with Councillor Turner. I don't think we need to act on this straight away. I'd like to see us come back in 6 to 12 months' time with any problems that have arisen. We do have a childcare centre down at Coronga Avenue where there's speed humps either side of that to slow the traffic down. So if we need to do that, we can look at doing that. But I don't think we need to act so hastily. I'd like to see us come back in 6 to
I move an amendment along that way, Mr. Mayor.
You can move an amendment if you
I'll
wish.
second that, Mr. Councillor.
What's your amendment?
That we review the traffic and safety issue in 6 or 12 months.
Once it's operational.
Say 6 months. 6 months.
That's an amendment by Councillor Turner, second by Councillor Whitten. Okay, any speakers for or against amendment?
Could I clarify, is that 6 months from now or 6 months from the opening of the operations of the centre?
6 months after the childcare centre's opened.
Any speakers for or against the amendment or?
In that case, I'll speak against the amendment. I don't see the harm in doing a report now on potential options. It doesn't force us to actually do any of them now, but it perhaps presents a suite of options as we see it now, and it would go through all the Traffic Committee and I think also Road Safety Committee for their advice on road driver education might be appropriate at the time. But it gives us a suite of options to make an informed decision when it's necessary.
Mr. Mayor and councillors, we put government's done it for years, federal government done it. add to traffic. Safety issues are so important. Right there, a lot of the things are in the DA, but the public there that are not happy. That isn't the issue now. The issue now is extra traffic and the potential of death by a motor car. It's a narrow street. When you get parked 300 off the curb, it does have to stop at another go. So that happens, right? So what we need to do is reassure the present, be proactive in the way we're acting. Approved. I don't want to stand in facility and place. That we as council have done what we have to do at any should be that we think should be our safety. This is only something measures. But I think it's so important that we present in Orange that we're active in this.
Thanks. Look, that closes the debate. I'll put the amendment first. All in favour of the amendment, raise your hands. Against? Amendment is lost. Put the motion. All in favour of the motion. Against? Motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. 4.2, the notice of motion, business rates by Councillor Joanne McRae.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move the motion.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Nugent. Look, in summary, there's been a lot of back and forth in our local media about business rates being the answer to vacant shops in town. I'd like to have some more information about the range of options that council may have as levers to address these concerns, particularly from our CBD businesses. I think we need to be able to make an informed decision about any business rates change and review the CBD cost factors and potential economic impacts if we do change or we don't change, or other aspects which are under our control to encourage a thriving CBD. It is noted we have a larger amount of office space than Bathurst. We have higher occupancy rates than Bathurst, which indicates that there are businesses who want to be located here in Orange. But like many areas across Australia, we are finding some challenges in the retail sector. But I would emphasise that rates are only one of the levers on option to council. And there are a number of unknowns in relation to the business rates. I'd like more information about, the maps of businesses, the number of premises subject to the special rate of the Orange Central Business Area, the number of businesses and the business village rates that might be impacted. And it's interesting when you consider that the special rate for the Orange Central Business Area has a yield of under $700,000. And I'd like that compared with what the costs are for the Orange CBD services that are provided and specifying exactly what they are. And that's, things like footpath cleaning, CCTV, additional lighting, landscaping. And indeed, looking forward at if we are going to implement aspects of our CBD Future City, our revitalisation project, if we're going to drop the rates, what impact would that have? I also have interest in the number of owner-occupied premises in the CBD. Owner-occupied means they're going to get a direct benefit from lowering the rates. But how many of the tenants of businesses would actually receive a reduction in rates benefit? I've been a tenant in the CBD previously, and I know that we did not pay the outgoings of rates. I can't imagine that the landlord was going to suddenly reduce our weekly rent, because they got a rate reduction. Be interested in anticipating how many suddenly tenants are receiving a rent reduction to encourage them to stick around as times are quite tough, particularly in this drought. There are a number of other options we could look at. Are there other ways that we can impact? There are other councils who have implemented special parking levies, special event levies, or even vacancy taxes, which is quite an innovative and interesting approach. Even the word vacancy tax might encourage some of the CBD landlords to consider whether their current rental rates are reasonable. But most importantly, I think it's also really vital for us as councillors to understand incentives for landlords to attract tenants may vary. We know that negative gearing with high debt discourages a reduction in your rental. It's better to keep the building vacant than to actually lower the rent and potentially have to increase your mortgage security. The ATO allows full cost deductions for vacant spaces. So in some cases, there's a financial incentive for landlords to keep buildings empty, available at a high rate of rent. There's no benefit of us reducing business rates for those landlords who are quite happy to keep them vacant with the rents they have set on them. So look, the idea of this report is bring back to council some information to allow us to make informed decisions and a thorough review of the CBD, and particularly to engage with those stakeholder groups that have been knocking on the door and often commenting in the media about our business rates being the answer to all the questions. I think we need to make sure we've got all of the information to make an informed decision.
Thanks, Councillor McGregor. Councillor Milletta.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like to propose an amendment, if that's okay. And the reason I do that is because there is a business forum being proposed in the near future. And I'm interested to know what that is going to involve, what stakeholders will be invited. So perhaps I could refer to the CEO as to what that's going to involve, because some of these questions in the first instance may be addressed there. If we defer this till after that meeting, there may be more information available.
Mr Chair, that's correct. There is a planned business forum. Trying to work out the date here. It's not next week, it's the one after. The intention there was really to start a dialogue with the business community, particularly in the CBD. So the invitees will start with the Chamber of Commerce. I've spoken to Ash Brown, the President. He's really keen to come along. Then we were basically going to throw it open, like these water forums. We'll do some targeted invites. It'll be held in the Chamber. We'll do it in a format that is structured but informal. The idea is to actually gain from those business operators what the issues are that they're facing at the moment. So it's a bit like this motion. It's an early fact-finding mission. We would expect them to be saying things to us that we can then take away and process, and we'd probably do another forum after that.
Thank you. It's up to you, Councillor, whether you want to accept the amendment at this point in time or whether you want to proceed till after.
Thank you, Councillor Milletta. Look, I think that's actually a separate matter. There are 325 sites that are subject to the special rates. I'm saying no. It would be a separate motion that you might propose.
Councillor Newton.
Well, I'd like to speak in support of the motion. Just very briefly, it seems to me a natural extension of the OC Future City project, which started as CBD revitalisation project. In terms of revitalising the CBD, obviously businesses, the operation of businesses in the CBD is critical to that. And to me, I think there'll probably be some useful information in the OC Future City consultations, which can feed into this report. We're waiting, I understand, on the reports to come back from the consultants in relation to the OC Future City project, which then I think maybe go out for a public exhibition. And then we'll also have to be deciding, because there will be so many ideas in there, we'll have to be deciding which one was going to prioritise. And to me, this this provides the opportunity to have some feedback into which be most beneficial in terms of the businesses operating in the CBD.
Is there anyone against the motion?
No.
You speak, councillor.
Yeah, look, very well. That a report be brought back to council on the levers. Well, I'll tell you what the levers are.
You may be able to help the staff when they put the report together.
I do think on our part would make a massive difference. Borrow so cheaply at them fairly quickly. As far as the investment we need to do this, I agree with the concept of this of many years so well. We need to make it more shop. They're the really important things for the CBD. I'd like to think that what comes out of these forums, us, our hands in our pockets as council, borrow the money if we can't get enough off the federal or state government, fund it ourselves. We've got enough money. I think that's probably one of the main priorities. Orange is the CBD. Revitalise that. Rate cuts I don't agree with. Inflating the businesses the rates. They can pay the landlord there. What you've got to do when you're a retailer is sell things. The only way you sell things is come. I would strongly encourage council in the future. Borrow while we can.
Councillor Solomon. I'll put the motion. Thanks, Councillor Hamley. Second, Councillor Romano, that we put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against, thank you. Look, just on that one, I'll just remind, not this Saturday, the following Saturday, because we don't have a council meeting in between. Old Myers new store is opening on Saturday morning at 8:30 and all. Sorry, 8:30 the 16th, Saturday week. And all councillors are invited to the opening. It's at 8:30. Okay. Look, I need a motion from you if you show desire under the new code of meeting practice. Get permission from councillors to continue the meeting. Move Councillor McRae, seconder. Councillor Prevotera, all in favour? Hands up, please. Yeah. General reports. First of all, we've got 5.1 is the quarterly budget review and performance.
Move the recommendation. Mr. Cook has kindly offered to walk us through the whole paper, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, that's very...
But I would decline that if I was him at this hour.
Move Councillor Whitten. Who seconded it, sorry? Councillor Hamling. Yep. Okay. All in favour? Hands up, sorry. Against? Thank you. 5.2 is the 2019 Australian Airports Association Annual Conference. Oh, up at the Gold Coast Convention Centre and Exhibition Centre on the 19th of November to the... Tuesday the 19th of November to Friday the 22nd of November.
Moved.
Right, we move Councillor Hamling, second. I know the second first.
That I go.
We've got to move a Councillor Hamling, second Councillor Munro, Councillor Maletta.
You need someone to carry your bag.
Mr. Chair, look, I support the recommendation, but I would like to nominate Councillor Romano to go as Chair of the Airport Committee, if he's able to do so.
Maletta.
I'll have to decline, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Miletto. I'd leave it open to another councillor. I'm extremely busy at the moment, and in fact, I'll be going up to Brisbane about a week later, driving up. So, yeah.
Do you want to go, Councillor Hamling?
If there's no one else, who else is on the committee?
Only Councillor
Well,
Leto.
Councillor Leto's on the committee, he'd be the one to go, but if he can't, I've got a bit of spare time at the moment.
I've got some other council engagements during that period, and I'm happy for you to.
Councillor Nugent's got his arm up. He wants to go.
No, I don't actually want to go. I was just interested.
What we're actually doing here is getting. So I'm going to move that Councillor Hamling goes.
I'll second that, Mr Mayor.
Second, Councillor Romano. Yep, thank you.
No, not second that I'm going, second that he's going.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, Councillor Nugent.
I was actually just going to ask a question about. I mean, it is a considerable investment on the part of council to attend this. You know, potentially, I think it's about $5,000 potentially. So, what can I ask? What we get out of this attending this conference? So I think we've attended the last couple of years. I think Councillor Romano has attended. Could you give us a brief rundown on you know what it is that we get out of
I'd love to.
for the money?
I'd love to. What in fact they spoke about, it was a very contentious topic in Orange where I think it might have been the term that I wasn't on council. It was put up by council that industrial land was to be purchased around airports, and funny enough, that's all they talked about. That industrial land around airports, it attracts more businesses to the airports. I remember it clearly because it was a very contentious issue here in Orange. So that was a couple of years ago. There was airport lighting, how to upgrade lighting, very important. When you land, there's special boxes you've got to put in. I did back then, but I don't remember every detail, but it was very interesting. There was a lot of talk about airport, land around airport, but to be rezoned to attract more business closer to the airports. So that's what I can relay back.
Yeah, and I'm sure Councillor Henry will
I was
bring
just
us
about
back
to say,
very
Councillor
detailed.
Nugent, I'll bring back a very stringent report on what they do. I just read down supporting information. Traditionally 2 days feature concurrent stream of focusing specifically on issues relevant to regional airports. We have one of those, so I think it's worth going.
And I look forward to how we're going to increase our non-aeronautical revenue.
Yeah, I'll take extra.
That's your speciality, isn't it?
Business.
All right, all in favour? Against, thank you. 5.3, see late item, request for financial assistance round 1, is event sponsorship. It's McCormick. Have it here. It's late item.
The recommendation.
I'll second it. Oh, sorry. No, I won't.
We've got a mover by
Item, Mr Mayor, sorry. Yep.
Sorry, yeah.
Amendment.
Right, we're going to need have we got a second of
Original motion.
Happy to hear the amendment.
lax? Because we haven't got a second.
Or the original motion.
Second for discussion.
Right.
Second the original amendment for discussion.
No, the motion.
Sorry, the original motion.
Mr Mayor, I've got an amendment if possible.
Yep, you can.
I'd like to fund the fireworks $20,000. I think this is something that's been going on for a long time, and Mr McCormack has always put his money up front to hold this. Of what it is, it's a celebration. We don't have the Christmas party anymore that we used to have down in the main street here. So I think I don't want to see this being lost. And if I think Mr McCormack has already dropped his price, dropped the amount of fireworks he's funded. So I think it's only prudent of us to come along the ride with Mr McCormack and let the residents go out and celebrate New Year's Eve out at Waratahs and enjoy the festive occasion that New Year's Eve is.
Okay, I'd like to speak next to. I've got one condition on any sort of amendment that I think when we're putting in a lot of community funds, it's incumbent on the person to make sure that Orange City Council is acknowledged. Now, for the last couple of years, it's been very, very much promoted. McCormick Barber New Year's Eve party. That would be the only caveat I have on it.
Yep.
That we get due recognition because it's ratepayers'
no
money.
problem with that. I've got no problem with that.
Councillor Wynne.
Mr Mayor, just a question through you to the CEO. Tech, which I'm a chair and the Mayor is a director of, we're also a sponsor of this. So should we declare an interest here, Mr Mayor, do you think, or not?
I would, through Mr Chen, I would think not.
Okay,
I don't think that is a
As
conflict.
long as it's on the record that we asked and... Yep.
No, fair enough.
All right.
Hang together.
First, Your Honour.
Councillor Murray.
Mr Mayor, councillors, look, I think it's a wonderful event. It stimulates a lot of things. It actually helps a lot of charities if you know exactly tell me charity thrives from all those things. And big help to a fantastic evening. But otherwise, go somewhere else and celebrate New Year. Go at all. So, you know, many times there is things to do. More and more with things, more and more things. I agree with giving the $20,000 and keeping the event.
Councillor Prevotell.
I support this totally as a family event. Increase it to 20,000. I'd just like to know if there's money in the budget to allow that.
No, we're taking out yours.
In terms of the impact on the budget, it does outline on page 5 that if we support the project at $20,000, then the event sponsorship program will have $26,851 to administer round 2 of funding. Now, that round 2 of funding is for events happening from the 1st of April to the 30th of June. Now, keeping in mind that that's a pretty cold time in Orange, I would suspect that supporting a lovely event like New Year's in Orange is a bit more climate friendly than perhaps heading into autumn and winter. So I'll support the additional funding and have no concerns over the budget at this point.
We're one of the movers for the motion swung this way. I think I'll put the amendment first.
You did.
All in favour?
Amendment?
Of the amendment.
Hands up. The amendment becomes a motion. All in favour? Hands against? You know. Very, very much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much for your attendance. It was a lot to get through there tonight. Thank you very much for attendance and conducted the meeting. Don't forget tomorrow afternoon, 4 o'clock in the South Court. And next Saturday, I'll get them to send out a reminder to everyone about next Saturday, the opening of the... Thank you very much, Lee.
We got closed, haven't we?
Sorry.
Yeah, we're just clearing up a few things.
No, I completely missed it. I have to admit. You told me you're finished.
I said
Going to close, Mr Mayor?
Hang on.
I reckon we'll just go home. I think it was a good idea, Mr Mayor.
Good idea too. Quits now. Councillors, please note that the microphones will remain on, allowing the recording to continue. However, the speakers have been turned off. Chief Officer will advise us if any written submissions have been received relating to any item advertised for consideration.
Indeed, there are none.
Extend an invitation to any member that's left, the public present, to make a representation to Council as to whether the meeting should be closed for a particular item. In accordance with the Local Government Act of 1993 and the Local Government Act General Regulation of 2005, in the opinion of the Chief Executive Officer, the following business is of a kind as referred to in Section 10A, brackets 2 of the Act, and should be dealt with in a confidential session of Council being closed to the press and the public. Items to be considered in closed: 6.1, expression of interest loan borrowing; 6.2, acquisition of easement; 39, acquisition of assessment lot 44, and 6.4, acquisition easement of lot 54, 867205. The reason for the confidentiality is the item is classified confidential under the provisions of section 10A, brackets 2, bracket C, information that would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom the council is conducting or proposes to conduct business. Right. 6.1 is the expression of interest, loan borrowing.